manipulation, pumping and dumping, manipulate the market, flooded from the darknet, flooded from the deep web, keep it a secret. Every exchange got the nerdy brains trading on the frequent.
Okay, so I think this is working. Just give us one moment. I just want to make sure that the audio is working as the instant reward's about to pop up. And I apologize in advance for being a couple of minutes late. I actually have a good reason why, and we're going to get right into this episode because, ooh, it's going to be a doozy. So just give me like a couple more seconds. I just want to make sure I'm not chipmunking and things like that, which is when the audio starts going insane. Should be fine. Perfect. Okay, yay. All right. So, hello everyone out there, all of you ACK. Oh, what are we doing? What sort of standards are we doing? We're doing ACK, we're doing TCP/IP. What are we doing? Um, well, hi out there anarchist tech support. Oh, so you're Google's tech support. Awesome. Nice to see you. Or maybe you're from Hewlett Packard from the mid 90s. Who knows? But welcome that you're here. And welcome to everyone on this episode of Crypto Barons. First of all, who am I? I'm referred to as Side Pocket on the interwebs. I'm one of the two co founders of DCG 201. I'm formerly known because we're going to change the logos this weekend and stuff as DEF CON 201 or DC 201. We are one of the many DEF CON groups across the world because our area code's 201. We are located in Hudson County, New Jersey, particularly Jersey City, New Jersey. We normally meet up in person every third Friday of the month, but because of the plague going around and police brutality and banana peels all over the sidewalks and things like that, we've been not only meeting up virtually third Friday every month instead, but we have also been. Ooh, there's a weird thing. I'm turning into some sort of mechanical Terminator device. Uh, but no, instead, so we've also done like these cool, like kind of SIG shows where we focus in on something. And this is this episode, which is this type of show, which is Crypto Barons. If you want to know more about our who we are and stuff like that, you can go and check our website out. I just put it in chat, which is defcon201.org. And you can also find us. We particularly have an active Twitter on DefCon201NJ, and we're on DefCon 201 and some in the future, in some cases DCG 201 on Instagram and GitHub, the hostducks.social instance of Mastodon. It's all a bunch of it's on our website, but if you're too lazy or you can't be bothered to go on the website, I just posted a link tree with all of our social media links. So this show, which we do second and fourth Saturday of every month, is called Crypto Barons, where we look. Sometimes we deal a bit with cryptocurrency markets, and sometimes we deal a bit with sort of like the culture around it, which we're going to get into a bit in this. But we mainly, as you can see with the dev shirt, as well as the actual physical blockchain provided by our other co-founder, GI Jack. This is a show where we look at blockchain and cryptocurrency technologies as technologies, meaning we try to, we run the wallets. We look at their white papers. We look at their hopefully open source GitHub or GitLab repos. We run test nets. We dig through code. We try to make decentralized apps, things like that. And Hydrate Squad. And no, this is not sponsored by McDonald's. I'm just really thirsty. So we're going to get right into the meat and potatoes of this episode. So as you can probably tell by the title, I have this thing that keeps going on where ever since we started Crypto Barons last, I would want to say like June, July. I think it was July. I've been wanting to do an episode about masternodes, and it took me a while. And I actually managed to put the episode together last month, and then NFTs skyrocketed. So I was like, okay, I'll just delay this show because it's two shows a month. First show in April, we'll finally do the masternode episode. And then this craziness happened. And because of that, and because of the guest I'm going to have on that's going to come out and speak with me on this, I was like, okay, fine. We're going to delay the Masternode episode again, and we're going to talk about this subject. So we're going to get into that in a moment. But I do want to say in the video. Oh, and that's the other thing. Shoot, I forgot about that. Let's do that. There's the chat. Okay, sorry about that. There's the chat. We had to turn it off before because of the I had to pre-record a stream, and this time, F it, we're doing it live. So you can actively act in chat, which actually goes into what I was gonna say, which is if you If you have any questions about tonight's subject or about cryptocurrencies or programming stuff, I'm not the best programmer, but I'll do it for the best of my ability, or questions for the guest that, and obviously this has to be appropriate. You can go to our website, see, and go to our blog and see our code of conduct. I really should have that as a link at some point. But anyhow, feel free to do in chat. I love talking to people in chat. We might not answer it immediately, but eventually, when the pace keeps up, I will relay your questions to our guests, or I'll answer your question directly, or you want to do a cool shout out. Otherwise, as I say, keep lurking, keep learning. Also, if you like what you see so far and what we're going to about to do, you can hit that bell on YouTube and like, share, and subscribe on Twitch, D Live, and YouTube. Also, hello all the people stuck out there on Facebook. Hello all the people who are watching this on Diode Zone. You were like the most awesome tech community out there on PeerTube. I'm not even kidding. That's why we chose Diode Zone to host on. And for all you elite hacksaws watching this through on YouTube, but through Invidious on Tor. Good for you, Mr. Spies. But yeah, if you do like or follow us or send bits or lemons or whatever on Twitch, D Live, or YouTube, we do get notifications of those. You will see them pop up with a cool sound effect, and I'll cheer you on. And particularly if you're on D Live, this is the cryptocurrency centric show, so you probably noticed we actually, thanks to the past couple episodes, we actually are only 8 followers away from 100 followers on DLive. And the reason why that's important is because once we hit 100 followers, we have met all the criteria for a special category on DLive that's called Cryptocurrency Superstar. For all of you people who unfortunately remember SNL in the 90s, that was the reference for you. But anyhow, when we reach 100 followers, we can submit for that, and then we'll be able to do a lot more with our DLive account. So if you're on DLive or you know a friend who's on DLive, that's dlive.tv. Go follow us. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to subscribe to us through Fiat or Lemons. Just click follow and it happens. And it increases our count, and then we'll be able to do more, especially on crypto bounds. So without further ado, let's get directly into this topic. And before we get into this topic, I would like to introduce. We're going to switch screens here, and I'd like to introduce the guest that we're going to currently have on today. So I'm going to unmute myself on his channel. And here we go. So the awesome person that I have on, and I'm going to jump over to your website if you can properly hear me here, is and I just forgot how to pronounce your name because it's been that type of a day. I had to go to a place called City Isle in New York, and put it this way, um, it would be easier for me, if you know the vague geometry of the United States, for me to drive to Florida and back than to get to that island. So hence why we had to delay it for an hour. That's why we're also a couple minutes late. I apologize, but could you actually, so I don't fully embarrass myself, do you want to introduce yourself and pronounce? I'm going to show your website in a second here. The awesome special guest, and thank you for coming on for this because this is a really crazy topic.
Is Govan Husselter-Brioche, my nickname Gavanify. I'm a French computer science and security professor. I'm also a core developer and lead contributor to the Sony PlayStation 2 emulator PCSX2, and I teach stuff like cryptography.
Yeah, nice. And if I remember correctly, you actually did a talk, I believe it's this year's FOSDEM, on all the research you did on the PlayStation 2. Am I correct?
Yep.
That's awesome because one of the things we've been doing, and we're not going to get into that whole drama, but we've been trying to promote, like, there's so much out there for free and open software solutions, and we really liked FOSDEM. We've retweeted some of it. We actually want to do bigger things with them, next year, and like with some of the other stuff that they've done. So I think that's really awesome. And again, thank you for coming on here. If I remember correctly, you reached out to one of our members, Ciracel, one of our DCG 201 members. Yeah.
He was the one that reached out to me, but it's fine.
No, that's perfectly fine. Like, he's one of those people who knows some people who know some people who hack some people, and and basically the topic that has come up here, and again, as for our guests here, if you at any point, if you want to chime in, as we're going to kind of go back and forth about this, it's going to be very casual. You are more than happy to do so. You can just, I'll stop talking and you can say whatever you need to. And I hope, especially when we get to go through the code part and like the encryption, some of the other details. But let's explain what today's topic is. So for the people out there who did not see the headline for this. So we promote a website that we absolutely love, and I'm going to put it in chat. They're really good people. It's called privacytools.io. Every time, particularly for people who, and it's good for both people who don't want to research and do more private security stuff but don't know where to begin, and also for people who are used to it but want to find like the latest news, the newest stuff, what's maybe has unfortunately fallen down a cliff, which kind of relates to this episode and stuff like that. But I want to show here, and I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't checked the Privacy Tools Reddit or the GitHub forum in there or whatever, but we're on the website right now. So if you click on, I believe it's software, and we're going to click on real time communications. One of the top centralized ones that it's been recommending for ages that a lot of organizations, including to some degree us with some caveats, that we have recommended is a program that you may have heard of. It's been in the news. It's very popular, whether you're on F-Droid or just Google plain App Store, or any of the or iOS, Android, was it iOS, Android, what other things? Windows, Mac, Linux systems, all sorts of stuff is Signal. And
Actually,
hmm?
if I may say so,
Sure.
Signal is actually not available on F2A as I remember, because they decided to have their own APK update system. So you download the APK from their website and
Oh,
it auto
right. I remember
updates.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm old. I just came back from an
it's
island
fine.
in the
It's
middle of
fine.
nowhere. No,
That's
thank
why
you.
I came in.
Yeah. No. Thank you for that. I completely forgot about because I remember used to be able to download off there, and then they had the whole API debate. And well, as you're going to see in a moment, Signal is not new to controversial changes, but this one is probably the one, in my opinion, that might put it over the edge. So I'm just going to read what they wrote on privacytools.io, and then I'm going to quickly flip to the website, and we'll get into all of this. As they wrote here, Signal is a mobile app developed by Signal Messages LCC. The app provides instant messaging as well as voice and video calling. All communications are E2EE unless you choose to send it as an SMS. Its protocol has also been apparently independently audited. It does note that it is a voice over IP service, and that one of the caveats about this, although Tech Learning Collective actually has resources and classes that shows you how to get around this, which is that Signal is one of those private message services that, or encrypted message service where you require a phone number in order to use. There's ways around that, but it's like meat and potatoes of it is going to prompt for a phone number. And that's honestly not unique to Signal. A lot of applications, except off the top of my head, the only two I can really think of is, was it Mattermost, Briar, and I believe Wicker Me, the public version, not the enterprise version, are the only ones I can think of where you can just make a username and a password and not have to do your phone number. Oh, also Element, which used to be Riot. Those are the only four I can think of. But there's a lot of applications, especially back in the day, where it's going to, like with most, because this is mainly targeting Android and iOS, will prompt for a phone number in order for it to use. And the reason why we had to bump the whole Masternode episode, I'm going to take a sip. So if you want to make any comments right now, here's the space to do it if you want. Are we good so far?
Yeah,
Oh,
I think we are. Yeah.
okay. So what we're going to get into, and I guess I'll start the sentence off, and we both have a lot to say about this. I'm just going to read parts of the blog post here, and I'm actually going to I'm going to repost the URL in the chat.
Mhm.
And so they made a blog post on this was apparently, and we're going to kind of get into about weird stuff with dates, on April 6th of this year. And it was titled "Help Us Test Payments in Signal." Uh, they're basically, as I said, the latest Signal betas are rolling out today. That would be on April 6th. And they said inside you'll find performance enhancements and a bunch of other things, but they basically have a beta build of, and this is how they pitch it. I'm rephrasing kind of what they have said on Twitter. I don't know if it's in this post, but this is what they say on Twitter. Is basically they want like an encrypted rival to Cash App that doesn't block things like the way Cash App does. Like, for instance, which we've covered before on previous meetings and stuff, a lot of, for example, sex workers all across the world, and especially in the United States, rely on Cash App and Venmo. But thanks to our Sesta Fosta laws and among other things, they've been ridiculously cracked down on. And also because of that, even simple like quote legal storefronts such as Etsy or states where they have legalized cannabis, getting trinkets or clothing or whatever has all been impacted by this. And even just one random error from Cash App or Venmo or Zelly can just screw over a bunch of accounts. And so what they've pitched is that they've basically partnered up with a cryptocurrency called MobileCoin, and they're pairing it with sort of a visual design and interface that would be very familiar for people who use Cash App, Venmo, and Zelly. And I'm saying it this way because, like what we do on Crypto Barons, we like to look at people's websites and pitch videos and stuff because it's good recon to see how an organization presents something because one, it lets you know how they want the thing they're pitching to look like, and two, how they probably also see the thing that they're pitching and working on. And so, as what we're going to kind of get into, there's both kind of legal, definitely ethical, and possibly even coding problems with this whole idea of using particularly MobileCoin as a sort of Cash App like system. I was wondering, as I bring up MobileCoin's website, if you either want to do any comments or would you like to explain, like, what is MobileCoin?
Yeah, sure. So, MobileCoin is a cryptocurrency. So, a cryptocurrency, like Sidepocket said, is just basically, well, you all know what it is, but it's just a way to have encrypted money that is decentralized in theory and everyone can change. The thing is, with MobileCoin in this case, they try to make some cryptocurrency that is able to be processed in a fast fashion, so you can just pay on something on your phone and forget about it. It works instead of waiting for like not hours but minutes on Bitcoin. And they try to implement it in similar, like you say. I'm going to make more comments about it later, but notably, like how they introduced it, first of all, I think I'm going on to that, but I'll wait for you to say what you have to say first.
No, that's fine. I was going to make a quick comment before we got into more stuff, which is that basically I mean, they've modeled it from what I can see off of like the fast transactions that you would see something on Cash App or Zelly or Google Pay, but they're basically, in terms of the crypto space, trying to out Litecoin because that was originally Litecoin's whole uh, kind of kit and caboodle of it being faster. My question is, before we get on to some of the other topics, do you have any knowledge, because my brain's dying, of what they're doing to make it go faster, and possibly, if you can answer it, what, like, Litecoin exists, which is supposed to be faster, so what's their
It's
method different, if any, than what everyone else is doing?
So I'm not an expert in Litecoin, but from what I remember, it's just basically smaller blocks and smaller things to process. MobileCoin takes a really different approach that I'm going to talk about later. Basically, they have a centralized consensus protocol, which is going to analyze what you send to it, and the phone in itself is not going to have to generate a lot of things. It's I'm going to explain more of the tech later, not only because they use this consensus protocol, which is the Stellar Consensus Protocol, and then Intel SGX to verify stuff. So I'm going to have to explain a lot of crypto, so I'm going to do that a bit later, if that's fine with you, because I need to explain all the cryptocurrency layout, basically.
Oh yeah, no, that's perfectly fine. And again, as we said earlier, our special guest has had issues doing presentation stuff. So worst comes to worst, he's probably gonna bark orders at me to, like, worst comes to worst, go on to GitHub and like I type in the find page and search for it. But yeah, no, we're definitely gonna get into that later because we need to go through all the surface red flags just on the pitch alone. So
Yeah, that's
yeah,
that's what I wanted to say, like how they introduced it, because it's not just the presentation. There's been red flags going for a long time, and I'd like to introduce all of this first before talking about the cryptocurrency and talking about the tech, because the tech has
perfect.
some good ideas, but like it's just badly implemented, and they could have done much better with what they were aiming. There's just some stuff that doesn't make sense, until you take some outside influence in consideration, that I'm going to talk about.
By the way, I'm gonna get into a very surface red flag in a moment when you were describing that, and then we'll get into some of the more others that have been talked about, and maybe we'll even come up with some new ones. But I do want to say to our audience that not right now, but when the stream's done, especially if you go to our YouTube, which again, if you go to the link tree I posted or our website, you can find the link to that. If you're confused, you can go on YouTube, search DEFCON 201, or type in what is it, youtube.com, was it /c/defcon 201, it'll go there. But anyhow, uh we've had many episodes of Crypto Barons, and back last October we did kind of two Halloween ones, and the second episode in that October was about the Brave browser. And one of the things I'm going to say off the bat is, after the stream, go back and watch that episode, because this a lot of this stuff from what I've seen so far reminds me a lot of what we had to say on the show about Brave Browser, which is, on the surface it sounds great and there are genuine good ideas and stuff, but not only is the execution of them questionable, what really harms a lot of this is some of the policy and decision making, which, as Techlore said when he's covered the Brave browser over the years, the core of any sort of privacy and security method, like never, like the protocols and stuff, the encryption, that's very important, but like the absolute pyramid foundation, the thing that's built everything on top of, is a communicative understanding of trust. And that's something that Brave has eroded in pieces very slowly over time for a lot of people. And I'm already kind of noticing that vibe from Signal's decision to incorporate MobileCoin. So the first red flag I can think of as you were describing that is Signal's trying to pitch this, and I guess also MobileCoin, as like a way of like, oh, we can send payments, but because it's Signal and we're more like privacy. Yeah, they brought up in chat, focus, that somehow like, oh, this won't have the same like banning account limitations that like Cash App has. But as you described it, MobileCoin uses some form of a centralized system. In fact, if I can quickly, before you answer that, one of our chatters just wrote, they said, quote, centralized consensus model, unquote, reminds me of something out of the Soviet Russia, the bad way. And in fact, what this reminds me a lot, which is also a previous episode of our show, is when we covered twice Facebook's Libra, which then turned into Facebook's DM, as it's called. So that's one of the first red flags, is when you were just reading that, of that they're trying to pitch this in the way, and people are going to think, because it's cryptocurrency, like stuff like Monero, of like, oh, this is some sort of decentralized, like on like hard to track stuff, but it's using some form of like centralized consensus model. That just doesn't sound right to me.
Well, actually, it does sound a bit shady. On that side, I can agree with that. But it does make sense under the friend model, because it's been Signal's role friend model, like they have their server and they assume the server isn't compromised. In a way, it's not that different from TLS servers. It's more the way they're going to deploy it that might break the thing or not. It's not a fundamental issue. Like, it's a big issue, I'm going to be honest, but you could still fix it, because in this way, VNet is still as centralized as MobileCoin. Why? Because BTP and all requires you to actually plug in an IXP and plug two data centers together to exchange data. But essentially the same thing as this centralized consensus. I'm going to talk more about it later again, because I have more things to say about the introduction of this cryptocurrency, but it has more to do with how they are going to deploy it that might hit or break everything, and also the reliance on Intel SGX.
I want to get just one or two possible quick points out of the way, and then I actually brought up they have a PDF manual of the mechanics of how this is supposed to work with MobileCoin. So I'm going to have that in the background while you talk about stuff. But yeah, and a lot of people don't realize, and I guess this is one of the things that we often do on Crypto Barons, where we're not like def DCG 201 is not sponsored by anyone. If we did, we would let everyone know. We're in, hi Djax. Oh, I don't know if you streamed. No, you usually stream Thursdays, but I've seen you stream Saturdays. I hope if you streamed today it went well. Thank you for coming out and chat. And one of these days I'm gonna have to get on your program because it's really freaking awesome. That's why we keep hosting it all the time. Um, he's a fellow streamer, by the way. Great one too. But oh, you're on a break. Okay, back next week. Awesome. I can't wait for next week. If we're airing something on there, we'll rate it. If not, we'll host it as always. But what was I thinking? But so what the reason why I keep saying, oh, we're not sponsored on DCG 201 is because like I am not sponsored by like the Litecoin Foundation or the Monero or any of these sort of things. So when we talk about a piece of technology, whether it's something which we've covered really awesome things and really horrific things, I can, even though there might be my subjective opinions or other people's, like I can tell you these things because there's no one that's pulling our literal blockchain, as you can see on the screen here, for us to comply to any sort of standards of like, oh, you can talk about this, oh, please don't talk about that, oh, like, we will pull out if you say this. We don't have that restriction here. So all this stuff that you can see here, it might be my opinion and our guest's opinion, but we can tell you exactly, like, I hate to sound like a Fox News program or something, but it's like we can tell you exactly how it is, the way we see it. And what a lot of people forget, and that's why we call out snake oil stuff in a lot of cryptocurrency, which we've done an entire episode about scams and things like that. And I promise I'm going to shut up and let our guest speak because he has a lot of awesome stuff to say. Is that a lot of times, like one of my big concerns, which is why DCG 201, a lot of our co-founder agrees with this, we all talk about this, is that all the companies, particularly after Facebook got a lot of crap thrown at them, both Facebook and Google at the same time, privacy, like I'll put it this way, Microsoft has advertising that says that they are one of the most private and secure companies out there now. Like it's degrading the word privacy and to some degree security because now everything's going to claim that it's encrypted. Everything's going to claim that they're private. And even if they do encryption, like they might say, oh, it's encrypted, but that doesn't mean it's the best encryption or that they're using it properly. So this is going to be an issue here. And one of the things I always notice with Signal is that, again, privacytools.io is really honest. It even though it is encrypted and they have the server system and stuff that you can see, it is a centralized chat system which has its own positives and negatives and its own impacts on how you do your own threat model for security. So even though that is a red flag, and I agree with you for MobileCoin, I'm also not surprised because not only would a centralized system be able to do things faster, see our bank transactions in the United States and in other countries, but also that you have to understand that like Signal itself is a centralized chat platform. So it also kind of makes sense that they would probably lean towards a centralized payment system in order to get that to, just to me, it's like I'm shocked, but I'm not shocked. But enough about what I'm saying. What are some of the red flags in your thoughts I've noticed? And I'll just comment if I have some of the tabs for them or whatever.
Yeah, sure. So the first thing I want to talk about is about Signal and not MobileCoin itself, because you talked about the centralization and all, but there's a thing to be said about Signal. It's that Moxie gave this talk about the privacy versus freedom at I think it was CCC like 2020, something like
I
that.
remember that, and I hate to interrupt you. I just want to say something really quick just for our audience. Again, we do have a GitHub. I'm going to copy that. I know it sounds like we're doing a lot of promotion here, but this is real stuff. We do have a GitHub. I put the link in chat. If you're on our Twitch, we actually have a widget for the GitHub, so you can scroll down and click on the repos, and they'll open a new tab, so you can follow along with the bouncing ball. And what we have currently pinned is we have not only MobileCoin's whole Rust built system, but we also have the a fork of the Signal server that Signal built in Java. So while you talk about Signal stuff, I am going to load that on the Signal server stuff and put that on the background. So again, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to let our audience know that, but continue.
Sure. So in this argument, Moxie, the creator of Signal, made several arguments against decentralization. Sorry about my accent. And one of them being that you have to, in a decentralized system, it's harder to secure one server. And that's the reason why they picked a centralized system. And I completely disagree with this because, like, in a centralized system, let's assume Signal. Okay, so let's compare Matrix and Signal in that side. So Matrix on its side have a history of messages, and so you can just scroll back and see all your messages. They're encrypted, but the server is keeping an encrypted copy. Okay, right. So Signal's advantage in that case is that it keeps no metadata. But the issue isn't that if it does, the issue is if it can, because in both sides you cannot trust the server either way, and Signal is even worse because it's centralized. So like on Matrix, you can just say, oh, it's my server, I have it like next to me, I know I can trust it, you know. On Signal, you cannot do that. You have to assume the server is evil. And that's a thing that Matrix can do for you in a way. So Signal, let's assume for a moment that Signal server is compromised. What would happen? Well, you would have as much metadata as Matrix would have. So Signal's argument of saying we keep no metadata, blah, 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 already falls down when you consider the server is compromised. And that's a part of the threat model, you know, it's fair. But if you actually think out of this threat model and you begin to understand why it was designed, you can see flaws in their arguments. For example, Signal's main argument is usability. So I'm going to be fair. On phone, it's pretty good, usually. The thing is, have you tried using Signal on anything but a phone? Like, the experience on a desktop and all is
I
absolutely
have,
horrendous.
especially on Linux. Holy crap.
Yeah, yeah, and not just that, but on phone actually it can downgrade silently to SMS, and like that's small things, that's small usability things, tweaks you could make, but when you consider the whole argument for MobileCoin is usability, like faster payments and all, it doesn't make sense all the way to me. Like, fix first your usability issues on your fucking app, and then think about the payment system. Now, I know why they want this. They want this for funding, and they want this for like advertisement. I'm going to talk about this later. So it makes sense like to do it now, but from a user point of view, if you wanted like to develop the best app, you would have first other things usability wise to fix rather than adding a payment app.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that, like, for Signal for me, and then, we tell people, that Signal does certain things really well, but as any sort of tool, it's like, here are the negatives, here's things to be cautious about. And one of those things, for example, is, you know, uh, Proton Mail, in my opinion, it has its flaws, but one of the things about that is a centralized mail system, and I've tried to run email servers and they drive me crazy. But one of the things that does, even though it kind of gets into a gray area, is that it's like, oh, well, from the other independent audits, it backs up what they claim that, oh, here's where a chunk of their servers are located. So I know that some of them in the servers that I use on their platform are actually going through like this nation with these laws. With Signal, I actually can't remember if they've ever said like where any of this centralized. It's in the U.S. Yeah, and that's one of the. Sorry, he said because I forgot to unmute it that it's in the U.S. that they have it, and this is actually one of the reasons why when we rank privacy search engines. And by the way, for our guest, if let me know if you have any tech stuff you want to share because I can go into the big blue button, grab it, and put it in our chat on the stream. So just let me know whenever you want to do that. Um, okay, but that's why when we rank, like for example, we do this thing where we have like here's the 3 or 4 like search engines that are way better than Google and wherever the hell Bing is. And what breaks our heart is that we've interacted with the DuckDuckGo people. We really like DuckDuckGo, and we've told them this, and they completely understand this because apparently that's a discussion they constantly have, which is that we put DuckDuckGo at the bottom, and it's not because we like particularly hate a thing or they did anything heinous. It's just the simple fact that because they're located in the United States, anything that's located in the United States, especially with our BS laws, is subjugated to our sort of tyrannical laws. So as we've seen in the past, even though from what I understand, DuckDuckGo would basically like torch all the servers if this happened, as far as we know. That anything that's based in the U.S. can easily get raided without notice and seized by any 3 or 5 letter agencies. And I mean, we've seen that with freaking COVID in our state of Florida, just on a personal mafia-ish level. Never mind what the overall state and federal governments can do. So that, like, even in a centralized system, like not knowing or like knowing where it is, and that it's its own can of worms there. So I completely agree with that. That's all I
Yeah,
have to say.
yeah. So yeah, that's the first point I wanted to make. Like Signal whole argument for introducing MobileCoin is first usability, and usability has some big changes it needs to make first. And just out of this, like the F2 integration, where they prefer to have their own update system instead of F2, like sure it makes sense under the thread model, but they prefer to do it their way. And when you take it in isolation to the thread model, it doesn't necessarily make sense. And that's the whole thing they did usually. So when you compare just the metadata like that matrix keeps and signal keeps, in a way, if you don't trust the server, it's the same thing. So saying it's a metadata free messaging protocol is just something stupid. Another argument they made is that it's harder to develop a decentralized protocol, which I mean, fair game, it's harder, but without one, we wouldn't have something like HTTP. So yeah. Now, mhm.
I also just want to quickly go back to something else. I'm glad that you brought up that signals on all of these platforms, but obviously with their development resources or decisions, the platforms are not all equal. And this is fascinating because last episode we actually interviewed the people who are building GNU Taler and comparing it to like what makes their banking and token system different from cryptocurrencies and current fiat money systems. And one of the things that was brought up is that because of how locked down Android is, and of course iPhone being Apple and iPhone, people trust this stuff less and less, which is why there's interest in developing Linux phones. So, like, let's say Linux phones actually decently take off and they become an actual, I'm just saying for sake of argument, third pillar. You have, these desktop signal clients that have, is particularly on Linux, horrifically lagged behind. And so just the idea that not all the clients are created equal, but what if like all of a sudden like this usability jumps up? And never mind that, for example, how many people still use Windows and a decent amount of Macs. It just kind of boggles my mind of sort of like, I know you want to focus on back end stuff, but just like where are you putting the resources here? So I just wanted to add to that. So, and I completely agree with the point that you made about my brain just died, so I forgot. So list your other points. Continue. I apologize.
It's fine. And you talked about resources, and I'll talk about this later, but that's another thing. They are a non-profit, and so them basically shouting at cryptocurrency is something I don't necessarily
It
consider
looks
good.
weird at best.
Yeah, yeah, for a non-profit at least. So, but but like I was only talking about Synod. So let's talk about how they introduced MobileCoin now. So Signal publishes the source code for the client, the servers, and all. And the thing is, to hide MobileCoin presence, they actually didn't publish any source code for the server for almost a year. And this included the whole Intel HTX pin kerfuffle that they had. So for a year, people that used the tool like in security critical situations didn't have the source code for the server.
Right, I read
Again,
about this. Yeah, if I can quickly go into my notes real fast. Hold on, just clicked the wrong thing. There we go. Um, yeah, it was something about where apparently they this was been going on for a while, but they like literally hid it. Yeah, it said um let me just find it here. Just give me 1 second. Yeah, that apparently that like the source code for all this stuff was like kept private for nearly 12 months before it was published on GitHub and things like that.
yep, it was in April of last year.
Jesus.
The first the first commit was adding a slash payment endpoint to the server and like advertising it to accounts. I don't remember the commits specifically, but like it's what it did. So yeah, they did it for like a year, and that's an issue I have because sure you don't have to trust the server on Signal, that's like its entire purpose. But when their thread model is centralized and literally is about trust us, we don't store metadata, and suddenly your source code goes private, it's kind of a big red flag. Almost as big as when Reddit got sold out and they just said, we don't want to open source it anymore because it's too much of a pain.
Or like what happened with Keybase and Zoom, and I know that because
Yeah.
we have a Keybase and we're trying to get off of it and still using it. But no, yeah, no, I completely agree. And again, when we were talking about earlier with like the previous episode with Brave Browser and about trust, for a lot of privacy stuff, like we understand, for example, hey, we want to come up with a new thing and kind of it's like what we do at DCG 201. There's some things that we hide, like foo things, just because we want it to be just a fun surprise. But in this case, it's like you're dealing with not only privacy and security, but like Signal is one of the most widely used and thus to a degree widely trusted um, centralized or just in general like encrypted messaging apps. Next to other weird choices like well, a lot of people abandon this, but like WeChat and things like that. So the fact that like this starts making users think, well, if they just said, hey, we're building a payment system, but we still need to work out details, so stay tuned to that. But no, they like hid this for a while. That kind of puts a dent. It may seem superficial, but to me that just puts a dent in the whole. Well, if they're not transparent about this, what else are they not transparent about? And transparency, to some degree, is one of the tenets of trying to do security, whether you're centralized or decentralized. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, definitely, and it's even more so important in a centralized world because the whole argument is trust us in this case, and it's hard, it's hard to keep your trust when they just try to hide away their work and just keep it on their side. So sure, you don't have to trust them on encrypting the message because you send them encrypted, but what if suddenly the source code for the client wasn't being updated, and the NSA or something just took over the nonprofit and just decided to backdoor the APK, so it sends to CNC servers all their private key and messages? Would you know that? It's the kind of thing that it's going to be found. It's going to be found quick. But the issue there is time sensitive. By the time people update, it's going to be
Yeah.
backdoored, and the key is going to be sent.
I'm honestly glad you're bringing this up. The reason why it sounds like I'm about to throw up is because this reminds me of a certain three-letter agency that has so much drama around it. I want to get into it. That's why I'm groaning. But no, I completely agree with that point.
Mm, okay. Yeah, it's fine. So that's one point of how they introduced MobileCoin. The other is like how they designed it. So first of all, I'm going to send you a link to the MobileCoin Foundation on BBB. And
Awesome. I'll share it right now.
if you go to the about page and scroll a bit down, you're going to see like a section about digital money, and like okay, I'm going to say it outright. I'm not for the free market. I know it's completely crazy to have a free market, and things are not going to be regulated by themselves. But the way they put it is pretty mind-boggling. So they basically say we believe governments have a legitimate interest in regulating the economic lives of their citizens, which I mean it's fair game. But when you make a cryptocurrency, this essentially is another huge red flag that means, hey, we put a backdoor in our code. So it's not this, it's not, this obvious, it's not a backdoor probably, but it's still like, holy shit, why are you doing that?
And we have a precedent for this, particularly with United States companies in the United States of basically demanding backdoors in the first place, publicly or not. So that's a whole other issue. And again, you have that whole thing where there's this is a centralized application system, and again, there's a big difference between having something decentralized and the air quote free market. Like there's a bit of a crowbar separation there. They're not one and the same.
Yeah, and about backdoors, I think the most publicized case of this was like Linus being interviewed and asked if the NSA wanted him to add a backdoor, and he said no, but he moved his head up and down to say yes. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
very
no,
Linus thing.
I remember that. Yeah, never mind all of like the meltdowns that he's had over the years. Again, kind of also, I don't know, this is not a DCG 201 opinion, this is my opinion, but you just kind of like, at least I'm not sure about France because I read news from France all the time, and I'll put it this way, I really like your healthcare system, but sometimes I look over and it's just sort of like, why are they doing in us? They shouldn't be doing in us. Um, but it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
not to sound American centric, but that's what I'm sure if the feeling's mutual on the other side. But it's
Yeah,
more
the
of
feeling is mutual, yeah.
yeah.
We do crazy stuff and we don't know why. And you do crazy stuff, but at least we know why you do crazy stuff. That's
Well,
not really insane.
our problem is that we do crazy stuff and everyone else knows why, but we pretend like no one else knows why. For so it's like a dog. Like I used to own pit bulls. It's like a dog who like is in trouble, and they put their head underneath like behind a stool, and they think this is a ninja technique. Like somehow their head behind the stool will like it just hid their entire body, and it's like we can see you, and then you poke their butt and they're surprised. Um, but what was I getting with this? Sorry for going off track here.
Mhm.
What was I just brain died.
It was about free market regulation, money, digital money, and then we
Right.
talk about governments and Linus.
Right, because one of the things, and this is exactly one of the reasons why cryptocurrency scams are so pervasive, especially in the United States. In fact, I will actually go out of the way and say personally, I think this is one of the many reasons, and probably one of the prime reasons why Elon Musk is so interested in cryptocurrency, among another conspiracy theory that has nothing to do with aliens, but has to do with space. That I'm not gonna. Maybe I'll bring it up at the end, but and you might laugh at it. But yeah, I literally kind of realized it yesterday what it was, but without getting off point too much. But no, that one of the reasons why these scams persist is because I'll put it this way: there's a lot of countries out there, and I would even say organizations that, similar to how like there's a lot of countries that have socialized systems, but they're not socialist, like they're not like communist Russia, but they have like certain systems. There are a lot of countries, it's the same thing in reverse, that have capitalistic systems and free market systems. But the way we have it, particularly in the United States, as someone described it, it's like the difference between going to Tokyo and the United States version of our capitalist system, in my opinion, is going to the Tokyo Pavilion in Disney World, where it's like it's been so warped that it doesn't. And because of that type of system, it's really easy to disseminate misinformation, especially in the guise of business. And so, essentially, as I don't know if you ever heard this term from Americans, but there's a saying, it's not just Hollywood, it's a lot of different systems in America that the quote is, in Hollywood, you fail upwards. And in a lot of things in America, you essentially fail upwards. And this is why like a lot of scams
And
and cults and misinformations persist, particularly in our country. And this is how you get. This is why there's just so many. It's not even just that crypto is hot. It's because of the
it's just
environment and
that
some of the
press
project
press.
leads. It fosters this type of system that can easily be exploited as hackers.
Yeah, obviously, just bad press is press either way, so they don't really care. And yeah, that's another thing I like. Another thing I wanted to talk about this is that like at the timing at which they actually introduced the cryptocurrency is really really bad. Like the US decided to start yet another war on cryptography, like with the with the encryption laws, where they're trying to basically say now that any company needs to add a backdoor to the cryptography code, so people can decrypt message for terrorism and all. The whole thing they couldn't do with the back when what was his name again? Aaron Swartz. Back when Aaron
Yes,
Swartz was
Aaron
doing it.
Swartz. Yep.
Well, yeah, they're trying to pull it back now. And what else they now want to do? Well, they're going to just put something that's on the edge of legality, while the US is trying to pull away on cryptography. It's like fucking don't force in this situation, man. We already have, yeah.
No, we see that's another thing because of our culture here in particular. Again, I studied French. I have French hacker friends. I was actually going to ask you a question about that, but I'll save it to the
Oh,
end
you can.
at the end because
Oh,
it's a really fun question. But it has nothing to joke with French. It's like a really curious question about the hacker scene in France. But yeah, one of the things about our sort of like from an American's perspective, from like our culture, and is that Americans have this, a lot of our faultiness is that we attempt to stupidly try to have cake, eat it, have sex with it, and then dump it. So, like, one of the things about that, speaking of us, like, talking about, like, one of the case workers is for sex workers, we literally live in an environment in America where you're supposed to indulge in the capitalistic aspects of sex, but also at the same time be ashamed and avoid it, which is like literally the two polar opposite sort of things where it's like you want to they try to make the American population crave like bikini models and all this sort of stuff, but you're not, it's basically you're supposed to like it but not supposed to show that you like it. And we do that in all aspects of our society, and it's entirely ass backwards and annoying. And this is and that's and I'm seeing kind of echoes of this, especially with, and again, for Signal, and I think Signal is used also outside of the United States, if I remember correctly, just because I'm stupid. But yeah,
I mean,
especially.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna use Signal, and I'm outside of the United States, so yeah.
Right, just making sure of that. But yeah, again, one of the biggest problems we also have in tech that DEF CON groups is trying to mitigate, and us at DCG 201 attempt to do is that we always say, hey, we're a hacker group from New Jersey in the United States, but we constantly reach out to not only other DEF CON groups around the world, but I just know a ton of hackers around the world because we make this mistake where to be honest, it's shifting, but still a lot of software and still even a lot of hardware is at least conceptually designed in the United States. And it's similar to how, like, when you have a team of people who, a group of engineers who are all Caucasian, Western, and Eastern European background, and then they find out that their camera AI system cannot sense people of color. You have that same blind spot where you have all these organizations making privacy and security measures, but most of their staff and stuff is in the United States, and they don't get these other voices of like, well, would you use this thing in this country with these rules, or like, oh, there's a weird arbitrary law or loophole here. How does that impact? And it never goes by because you don't have enough eyeballs and backgrounds on the same situation. In fact, because of that, I was looking at your the link here, and they list some of the
Mhm.
partners of the MobileCoin Foundation. And I'm actually shocked. I just found
Yeah,
out
I'm
that one of
I'm
the
going to
partners
talk
is
about that in a
is
moment.
Fight for the Future, and I'm like, what are they doing on here? Do we have to send them a message, or like it's like
Yeah.
Facebook status concerned,
Yeah, right. And just talking about like the oh god, I forgot what I wanted to say.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
the
welcome to
AI.
my world.
No, it's like the whole AI thing. I'm going a bit off track there, but like you talk
That's
about
fine.
the AI, you talk about the AI being having blind spot and all, and that's the thing I want to say because like a lot of people complain about the engineers saying they made a racist AI and all, but it's not their fucking fault. It's the fault of the data set. Just complain about the people taking pictures, not
Well,
and
it's like, I mean, I would say that in terms of just personally in software
Mhm.
development, depending on the situation, someone should have thought of something on the engineering team, but in reality, I don't even think it's the data set. It's the same thing with, like, for example, I know a lot of brilliant engineers that work at Microsoft, and they've worked on real clunkers of a project, and I hear the same thing over and over again. The reason, like, we thought these features were like, it's like Cyberpunk 2077, where a lot of the people who worked on that game, they knew about the bugs, they reported these, they knew about but and it's
yeah, it's
asinine, but they weren't the ones saying push forward with this bullcrap. It was their bosses. It was the people
yeah,
above
it's
them, the
management.
CISOs and stuff.
It's always management and data sets. So they use the first data sets they provided with, and then they don't care. It's like, for example, have you tried to use Alexa with a Scottish, like Alexa, Google, okay, Google, or anything with a Scottish accent? It won't recognize you most of
Right.
the time. So it's not something that they have, And
And
that's the
that's
thing.
yeah, and that's
Mhm.
because similar to I would imagine similar to the UK. Like when you talk to people in the UK in general, they're just like Scottish people. Oh, those are mutants. Like they don't care. So I can imagine like the department doesn't care yet to send out like people to do samples and do more research to get that working better. That you see this all the time.
Yeah. And that's also an issue with the AI because instead of like, even if it has Scottish people, it's going to disregard them because it's going to be so low because the population is so low that they don't care.
Right.
While it's an entire variant of the language, so it should be at equal measure basically with all the West. If you want equal quality, the thing is, it won't happen because you have less people, so you have less uh, voice being recorded and all. It's a vicious circle. It's something you don't really think about, but it's not just an issue on the engineering side.
Right.
It's really an organizational issue.
One of the reasons why, because one of my specialties is being a social engineer, and like
Mhm.
I actually have a. I don't do this online, not because it's skeevy. I just want to. It's easier to teach in person. I literally do
Mhm.
like like an actual social engineering for beginners because I have my own pet peeves about that, such as I actually the reason why I ended up doing the class at our meetings. As a presentation in person is because I had a friend of mine that I'm not, just for privacy's sake, going to say their handle on air, but they literally came up to me. It's actually kind of why do Master of Unlocking and Crypto Barons, my two shows on here, was they were like, they go to social engineering panels that aren't at DEF CON, and everyone talks about all this stuff, and they have no idea what it is because it's like it would be like if every class was about intermediary Python and there was no introduction to Python class. So everyone's just nodding, but nobody knows how it's being done, and that's why I do all of that. And the reason I bring this up is because, you know, there's a reason why a lot of organizations get and people get pwned by social engineering all the time because it's the human brain you're dealing with that has not been. That's like you talk about a thing that skipped past Patch Tuesday for like over 100,000 years. It's that thing, and again, it's really hard to debug a system when you are the system itself. It's really hard to like look out, loop in, and come back. So a lot of this stuff is just, again, as you said, they're cognitive biases. It's stuff that you don't think about, but then when the situation arises, you kind of realize, oh, that's a blind spot. I didn't realize that. Just so we can continue on with stuff. Do you want
Mhm.
to, or do you want me to attempt to bring up another thing that's kind of semi non-tech related, which is sort of like how, like right now, MobileCoin, and I'll actually bring up the coin graph here, is where we're gonna get a little bit into finance.
Mhm.
It's been skyrocket. Well, now it dipped, I guess, because of the bad news. But you can see on the chart around
Yeah,
here,
it was
yeah, this
it was
is our,
70, then
yeah,
30.
right around when
I
they
was very
announced it
shocked about
here on the
that.
4th, and it just skyrocketed. And then one of the things that I found about this is sort of there's been a lot of controversy on just how MobileCoin was sort of implemented. I might get it wrong, but basically the feeling of it is that, where there's cryptocurrencies where they develop it and then they do like a bunch of airdrops, or just like the foundation puts some seed coin in, or money to just get it to start. But from what I've seen, like this was ridiculous, and apparently this Reddit thread I brought up was so ridiculous that one of Signal's own people had to come on right here and try to explain kung fu their way out of it. So do you want to talk about kind of how they kind of
Yeah, sure.
skeevily front this up, or do you want me to attempt to do that?
Okay, I can do that. So basically,
Thank you.
the way MobileCoin works is that they have 250 million coins, I think, which are pre-mined. So what are pre-mined coins? It's essentially just coins all given to an address, and then you do you. So in order to fund MobileCoin development, they sold like, I think it was 30% or something, originally to tech ventures, to capitalists, to VCs, stuff like that. And they sold it for like 30 million bucks. And then they own all the West. So it was originally something like 30% that was sent, but like it's more like 50% that is deployed already to people they don't know, probably just investors. And then they have 50% of the West of all the coins. So you can see already, yeah, you can see already that's not really great.
Yeah.
And
The way
and
they
just
word it in the Reddit, if you don't mind, is they basically
hmm?
said that they that when you pre-mine coins, there's like sometimes there's some private investors, but there's usually a mass amount of like invite or like first come first served public investors. And what they're one of the complaints they're making is that the public investors, they sold like basically the mobile coin for peanuts, and then they just basically front loaded all the private investment, which then, because we don't know who these groups are, or we could just make guesses, that's just a whole other can of worms skeeviness.
Yeah, we could talk a long time about stuff like Tether after that. It's yeah.
Because literally, I was actually originally going to include Tether in our scams and hack episode, and while I'm probably going to have multiple scam
Mm.
and hack episodes, Tether was such its literal own ball game that I am. And if you want to come
And
on
it's
for
still
that, that's fine. It was
oh,
literally,
okay.
I'm like, I have to make this own episode in the summer because there's just so much to
Oh, yeah.
say.
This shit is crazy, and it still is running. Like nobody has
Right.
been convinced or whatever.
There's
It's still
conspiracy theories about why, and I am going to bring that up when I do that
it's not
episode.
even conspiracy theories. Like the price of Bitcoin is still going up, and they're still fucking pump and dumping the whole thing to get the price to increase. It's insane, and nobody's stopping
I
them.
know. This is the craziness too, because one of the things crypto bros often do, whether if they're snake oil or not, is their whole thing is like this is, and I mean even the Satoshi paper to some degree, it's like this is supposed to be the alternative money, the idea, the lofty idea here, and that's why I say it's lofty, is that this is supposed to like here's a financial system that's not going to do most of the mistakes that the current financial system is. And my argument, it's like it has to do with value. There's a reason why most value systems over time, whether you're doing bartering coinage or dollars or credit, they all look the same around the world, not just because the banks are all globalized and huge, but even before that, like different cultures would have similar systems and similar scams and similar like finance issues because ultimately when you deal with value, you're going to have the same types of issues cropped up. This is like inherent to that system. So it's like, of course, cryptocurrency is going to get involved in the same like pyramid schemes and offshore funding, pump and dumps, people cut and drying and stuff like that, because that's just the core issues with finance in general.
Yeah, and putting all that aside, that's just fundamental issues with all of the crypto coins implementation. First
Right.
of all, having a set number of coins, like when you think 99% of all money is essentially lost and you can subdivide only past a certain point, it money doesn't work this way, you know. Money gets printed. It's not something that is there that is going to disappear. No, and that's also why inflation is actually a thing. So
Right.
passing through that, there's also the issue of having a full ledger that contains every transaction ever. So sure, if someone wanted to encode like sensitive data on the blockchain, like I know child pornography on the Bitcoin blockchain, well, it actually happened. And
Mm-hmm.
would you know it? It's actually entirely a gray area because they encoded completely insane thing on the blockchain and nobody can do anything.
Yeah.
And putting that aside, just downloading 200 gigabytes of data to use something is kind of crazy. We
Oh
don't
yeah.
need an entire transaction history. What we need probably is just macro blocks that list the current balance, a consensus protocol to agree on that, and just purge the thing. You start the long-term thingy for like 10 years, like ISP does, and then you forget about it. You know, you don't need to keep the entire history for everyone to use.
Agreed. And one of the things that we often talk about here, again, and I'm not even like, I, me not being the best coder in DCG 201
Mhm.
is literally like the understatement of the century. But even myself, like when I remember, like it wasn't that. I mean, there's 90s jank, but like there's this whole thing where there used to be this utopian idea that like one of the aspects of a hack when you're talking about development and programming is just taking these complicated functions and making these lines of code where each line of code solves multiple problems at the same time, and like everything's bloated now because no one wants to make like refined, simplified, like working good code. It's just bloat on top of bloat. And I agree that even with the inherent nature of how blockchain works, and you can see our first episode where we program that live, we don't need even shitcoins being the same size as Call of Duty Warzone. As someone who used to make video games, I hope people, because that's its own thing. It's like everything's bloated, so it's like we don't need a blockchain that's as big as current Google Chrome and Call of Duty Warzone, and they all have the same spying and backdoor features. So we
Yeah,
don't need these things. I
and
do want
that
to, yeah.
and that's I forgot what I wanted to say again. Like, hold
No,
on,
I apologize. That's
it's
that's me being a time vampire. I'm sorry.
it's hold on.
Okay.
It's fine. Go on. It's fine. Go on.
So what I'm gonna do here is I want to bring up this one last red flag before we
Mhm.
attempt to get into some of the good and the bad and the literal ugly of the code that I'm grateful that, because I
Mhm.
looked at some of it. It's a bit weird, but you I think are way I think you're way better than I am at this. But you talk that fast, enough said. And you do reverse engineering, which I think is great. I love reverse engineering stuff, especially video games.
Thanks.
But it's fun. See, Nintendo, it's fun. So the thing is that and PlayStation Store, but I digress. I want to bring up one last, like, this has been a really very recently publicized red flag, and then if you have other red flags that we haven't brought up yet, you can just lay them all out. But what
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
gonna do, and you probably know where I'm going with this, is I'm gonna bring up. We're doing two Wayback Machines. We're gonna load up this old file
Uh-oh.
for the white paper that was used. I can't remember what date it was. I think this was during the hidden development period, I believe, before like they announced it on April 2020. But
Yeah.
this is one of the, yeah, sorry. Oh, this was a long time ago. Sorry, November 13th, 2017. And this is part of the original white paper pitch. This has nothing to do with, again, when we talk about white papers, sometimes they might include like the math. Sometimes, very rarely for the encryption stuff. But this is basically more of like a, here's what we are. Here's, it's the Jewish question, like, what is this night different from all the other nights? Why is our cryptocurrency different from other cryptocurrency? How we're gonna organize and things like that. And so we're going to keep scrolling here, blah, 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 peer-to-peer, SGC, which we'll probably get in, transparency and privacy. And notice how that's the shortest section in this. But if we keep scrolling down here, we eventually get to the team, and they list a bunch of they list 3 names on here and a couple of advisors. And one of the teams here is a guy we've been talking about, Moxie Marlin Spike, if I pronounce his last name correctly, who
Mm.
is one of the founders or the founder for Signal, and he's listed here as the CTO. And to corroborate that, if you use the Wayback Machine back in December 2017, you notice this website looks very similar to the one we brought up before, but you go to the team here, they actually have the new team one is just ambiguous, but they actually have the people here, and you can see picture and everything right here. Moxie Martin Spike, that's CT, I almost said GTFO, the CTO of Freudian slip of for MobileCoin, which it's like, okay, so the guy, because people think, oh, maybe they found this group and they talked a bit, did some business back and forth, did research, and then got on this. But what this tells everyone is that this is like this might as well be Facebook's DM. Seems like super astroturf where they make it seem like, oh, we found this third party company, brought it in, but joke's on you, Signal, or at least one of the guys that founded Signal, is also the one. So he's like Putin it doing puppets on both sides here simultaneously. So I don't know if you want to add comments on that, but that's been the newest bag of worms. They keep claiming that it was not on there and that, or it was wrong information, but a lot of people have doubts because again, they've already broken trust not only with examples in the past with Signal, and this is not to absolutely shit on Signal. Again, a lot of people use it. There's honestly things that are good about it. It's the same thing that we talked about with the Brave browser on our episode. But trust has already been slightly eroding away and iffy. This does not help with that.
Yeah, and that's something we kind of all expected, honestly. We all knew it was Moxie's pet project. We all knew, like, there's this cryptographer on Twitter. Please don't hate her. It's Isis Goa Lovecraft. She worked on Tor and all, but she said that
Nice.
she got was a contractor for the Signal Foundation, and then she worked on MobileCoin. And so that's the thing, when you work on Signal and then you get dropped to MobileCoin, it's not just something out of thin air. Yeah, there's relations, and there's always been. I don't think they're really trying to hide it that well. Now the issues I have with this is that since it's like there's been content about this all the time on the net. Let me see if I can find something about it.
Sorry,
But
take
basically,
your time. In fact, while you say that, I'm going to remind the audience again that if you do like the content that I always do the spiel, if you like the content that you see on this current episode, and again, we do this second and fourth Saturday of the month, normally at 8 p.m. We're doing at 9 today because my life sucks. But if you're on YouTube, you can click that bell and notification subscribe, and subscribe, follow on Twitch, DLive, or YouTube, especially on DLive, because we're trying to do that 100 follow goal. Also, if anyone in the chat, because it's actually been a packed chat, I think they've just been dead silent because they've been absorbing all this information. If any of you have any questions for our guest or for me about what we've currently said about Signal, MobileCoin, our thoughts about it, you want a cool shout out, provided that it's appropriate so we don't yeet you to the sun, talk about it. I love talking to people in chat. Otherwise, which it seems like everyone's doing right now, keep lurking, keep learning. So I'm sorry about that. Have you found the link yet? You can continue.
no, I am fine, but I can explain it. Basically,
Perfect.
it's just that there's been content for a long time that Signal is essentially Moxie's pet project, and that it just pushes for its ideas regardless of whether people like it or not in the company.
This sounds like 2 other things that's predominant open source that I'm getting a headache, but it's a good headache about that we're not going to say on air yet because of reasons.
Yeah, it's fine. What I wanted to say is, obviously he was involved, but that's not the main issue. Like, it's a big issue, sure, and that's probably why he pushes it. And like, it's a thing with cryptocurrency. So I've seen this person. I think her name was Amy Castor. Let me find it. Yeah, I have a link to it. So I think it was her that said this.
It's kind of the same way how, like, all of a sudden Microsoft apparently really loves open source and they bought GitHub
Yeah,
to
okay.
contribute it. And it's like, we know they're doing that because they want to basically influence it by upstreaming and contributing their own stuff to it. It's like duh.
Yeah. Yeah, like in the blog post I just sent, it's just someone who did stuff on cryptocurrencies in the past, but basically she just said that it basically looks like insider trading if you see TRLF insider trading. But I want to remind people just of a thing: there's no laws on insider trading on cryptocurrencies. It's
Yep.
like it's even if Moxie was involved, even if he pushed it inside of Signal as a puppet dump scheme, like to get the price to rise a la Elon Musk, well, what can you do? It's legal. Well, at least it's not illegal.
Right.
So
It's not
yeah,
been criminalized yet.
yeah, that's basically it.
Though to
So
be
you can,
fair, it's barely criminalized in a lot of banking systems, to be honest.
yeah. But what I wanted to say is, even if Moxie was involved in this case, well, it is pet project. He just wants to involve it, and he makes money on the side. So there's not much to say about it here. If you like, the main point to make here is more that it's a non-profit and getting funding from a cryptocurrency is pretty effing bad. But another point I want to make here is that if you actually push for cryptocurrency on the public eye to get funding and to get more adoption, because Signal whole deal is they're trying to get into the mainstream by doing other things that other mainstream apps do. So that's why it's, and they want to basically make, like let's imagine they want to add a payment system just for that. The thing is, that's not going to actually help them in this case. Why? Because this shit is not available in the US. If you go to the README of a GitHub repository, they just say, yeah, okay, it's not legal in the US, so please don't use it. So the whole thing already is just
Here's a pile
doesn't
of
list you.
cocaine. Please don't snort it. Enjoy.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And so it puts the entire thing like on a really tight edge because they want it to have more adoption, but in the same time they're going to reduce adoption. Why? Because it's a gray area and governments are going to be wary of this. And if they don't already ban Signal, they could actually use this argument against it. So using this as an argument to like it's going to bring more people in it. So I'm going to actually say it's going to do the opposite. It's going to bring less people in because it's going to be actually on a more legal weird side effect. And yeah,
It's
this is
honestly kind of like the reason there's a lot of people who use Keybase less, because even though Zoom is apparently a separate thing that's not supposed to influence them, just the fact that Zoom owns Keybase and all the stuff that Zoom does, again, it's that breakdown of trust that's just going to cause people to not to jump in. I also want to put out there that, speaking of trust, again, I don't want to bring up any three-letter organizations in FOSS that are driving me personally crazy right now, but an aspect of that is that one of my personal issues, and I'm just going to leave it as that, and then hopefully maybe you can share some more thoughts, and then maybe we can get into some of the
Mhm.
code, is that, and I hope this is going fine and everything. Are you good? Are you okay?
I'm fine.
This is awesome. Yeah, we've been talking a lot longer than I thought we were, because this honestly has been, whew, this has been
It's a big
fascinating. You've been
subject.
honestly a
And
great guest. Viva la
I
France.
still have a lot of things to say.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's what, we're all about, part of hacking, whether it's a coder, a security person, a free software advocate, it's all about passion. So, but
Mm.
speaking of free software, like one of the issues that I have with certain organizations, and it's not unique to this. Again, I'm seeing this happen with Signal and stuff. Is, you know, it's one thing to just be like, oh, we're just doing this thing and it has its own problems. It's another thing. I call this, by the way, it's controversial. I always call this personally the Gab effect, where I'm not sure if you know about Gab. If you do, even though I apologize on behalf of our country for introducing this on the world. But the thing about Gab is that I particularly don't like the most, like just removing all the politics, even removing all the crappy coding, right? Is the fact that and we talk about this with Brave and stuff, that they position themselves as, yeah, we hate Twitter. Twitter does all this awful policy stuff. They mass ban people. They talk to feds and stuff. Come to us. And they specifically advertise as, we are not Twitter. We don't do these things. But then you look at their history and they've done the exact same things. And it's sort of like,
No, they've done worse. They've done worse. Don't worry about that.
I know, but what the point, I get that. But the point I'm trying to make is that, like, to me, it's the same thing with a certain uh, Foss group that's not FOSDEM, and what I feel about with Signal here, which is that like you're out here, and I've seen them talk about like Facebook's WeChat is just freaking it's spying and it's awful and it might have backdoors in it and their payment system is like they can easily try. And then I'm looking at this and I'm like, but you're kind of doing the same thing but with different terms. So what's the difference? Like that to me, it's one thing like with like Facebook, I know they're going to be scummy, so I expect that. But like when you're trying to do the opposite, especially if you are a FOSS project or an open source project even, and you're replicating even some of the stuff that your rivals are doing, that to me is just a lot more like hurtful, and it to me that breaks the trust more. It's like the devil you know versus like the angel you expect to be the angel when they're not. And that's how I one of the vibes that I personally get from this.
Yeah, and actually, you gave me an excellent transition. I'm going to give you a link, and I'm going to not say anything and just read the whole thing, and you're going to
Okay.
understand why.
I'm gonna assume it's Goatsy, but I'm just gonna open the link and put it
Oh,
on here. No, you're French. You have like you have the France has the OG Goatsy where you have a common thing in a lot of French plays. I think it's from the 17th century, maybe 18th century, is removing full wine bottles out of horses' asses. And I always refer to that as the OG Goatsy, you know. So,
I didn't expect you to love that at
screw
4 a.m.
screw Dogecoin. I want Sino de Bergerac coin. Um, so let's yes, we actually let me just make sure I have the audio on this. So probably one of the things that yes, Jack, that's a thing. Go look it up. That's our co-founder in chat. But no, probably they probably hate us now on Instagram. But when we were trying to see if maybe MobileCoin had a presence on Instagram, we heard about this and tagged them in tonight's post. So yes, I have seen this. It's still my brain can't even wrap around explaining this. To me, this just sounds like a weird corporate cult thing or something.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of Ethereum without the good side.
Yeah, to me,
It's
this to me is like it's like crypto info wars, like crypto wars.
yeah, but quite like Ethereum tried to do their Web3 thing where with the web cannot be censored and all, but what what the fuck, man? Just assume for a moment you have evil actors in the web. I know it might be insane to imagine, but just imagine for a moment. What
Right.
will you do?
I know that, and it's like the other thing about this too that makes it really sad. See, another thing that I hate the most is like okay, so this might get us flagged on Twitch, but I'm just gonna. This is super simplified. You can disagree because it's France, and you're probably right. But like for example, right? I'm someone just gonna put this out there personally. It's not a DCG 201 thing. This is me, side pocket personally, right? I support a thing. Jack's gonna come in and kill me when I say this. I support a thing where if you are like a reasonably sound person and you can like prove that,
So
it's the same thing with cars. That yeah, if you want to have a firearm and like go hunting, or you just want it on your shelf, not loaded, or you want to try target practice, maybe you're part of a minority group that actively gets shit on and you need to defend yourself, you should be able to have a firearm. And the suck ass thing, it's like the swastika where it was like, okay, this was this thing, it was just a thing that's here, and then so many people came in and screwed up so much that like now it's like hurt all these legit causes, concerns, and things because of all the bull crap. And so what makes me also pissed off about this is there are cryptocurrencies out there and like legit blockchain tech that are actively truly not NFT scummy or anything, trying to promote and reward actual artists, whether it's music or physical paintings, digital, programs like demos and things like that. And I feel like this type of stuff, it's like this is going to put a bad word, combine that with NFTs, and now no, like there's all these legit tech that's being worked on by like 3 or 5 people that now they're going to be like great now people are going to think we're all of this and our project is just going to get kneecapped. So that pisses me off. It's one thing to screw up your own
yeah,
thing, it's another thing to like screw up other promising things that are doing what you're saying that you claim you're doing, and now you've screwed their pooch. That just it just ugh.
Honestly, I understand most of the gun control arguments. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I see where you're going, and yeah. It's just always the bad actor that spoils it for everyone.
Yeah, that's why I also brought up it's to me kind of like the swastika, where it used to be a religious symbol, a lot mainly for Jains, but throughout India, and then thanks to like even the normal ones, like a lot of Jains are afraid to put that up because it's just been so tainted by the stupid that and we have a lot of these in human society, and like this, I was just using that as an example, probably a bad example of like I just don't like it when it's kind of like, for example, how like it needs to be developed, but using clouds like cloud tech, air quote, to stream a
Mhm.
video stream for gaming, yeah, it's in its infancy, but to me there's nothing inherently bad about that. But now when people think of it, they think of Google Stadia, and because Google is Google,
Well,
they just ruin it. So it's not even going to get off the ground in a lot of other places just because it's like it's just done in the worst way by these big entities.
Well, the fundamental things that are bad with that are actually like, in a way, it's kind of like Bitcoin because it uses a lot of bandwidth, one, and two, you don't actually own the thing. So
Right.
if they decide to do the project, you don't own it.
It's like
And
video
that's a
game
thing, yeah,
microtransactions. Yeah, you don't actually. Yeah,
yeah.
that's we explained that in our first episode where what you're doing with your amount is actually like, even though there is a block for that, what they are, what you're not. It's like the light thing. You're not seeing things. You're seeing light bouncing off of things. You're not seeing. It's not like there's literal data most of the time. They're reading numbers off of a ledger and comparing notes. That's what you're
Mm.
looking at. So yeah, you don't own it like the same way how you have like money in your physical pocket. But speaking, when you brought up the such, so do you have any other red flags that you'd like to bring up that we didn't cover?
Well, I was going to transition slowly about like the code, but yeah, it's half of a
Yeah.
red flag and half of code. So there's been a lot of talk about MobileCoin technology and notably them using Intel SGX. So for the people that don't actually know what it is, so Intel SGX is what's called a secure enclave. So basically, it's a security coprocessor that's inside Intel processors and is supposed to be trusted. Like, imagine it as a DRM processor, so you cannot control what it does exactly, but once you
Question,
gave it
because I'm an
this
idiot. What was the name of the thing? Did you say Intel STX?
SGX, sorry for
Intel
my accent.
SGX. I'm going to try to bring it up in another tab, but keep explaining it.
Yeah, it's basically just a security coprocessor, and once you set it up, you don't really own what happens in it. Like, it's just going to do the thing you set it up to do, and like. Do you know about Netflix? What it has its own DRM system. So
Especially, yeah, with the Web3 consortium. I know a lot about Netflix. Go on.
yeah, okay, so they have their own DRM, which is developed by Google, which is called Y-Divine. So what is Y-Divine? It's basically just, instead of sending the video normally like every fucking sane application should, they just send it encrypted. Why?
We go. Now we're reconnected. Sorry. Can you hear me? That's all. Let's try this again. Let's do the echo test here. Do do do. Da da da.
Da-da-da.
Okay, that
Okay, that
works.
works.
All right. I don't know if you can hear
Hello?
me. I'm sorry. I did a stupid. So I don't
Yeah,
know if you were saying
so
something earlier, but you can. I'm not going to do the stupid again, and you can
I,
you
he-
can start over. My apologies.
I heard you just disconnecting that way.
Yeah.
So basically, they have this plugin on Firefox, Chrome, and all to decrypt your videos, and it's basically stupid because it's just a whole blob of cryptography code that decrypts the video for you, and it's actually so stupid that they cannot do hardware accelerated video decoding, so they do it on the CPU, and that's why Netflix might seem slow to you because that theorem actually forces you to
Hmm.
use software decoding video. Anyways,
It's also slow
they just
because our infrastructure in the United States is absolute garbage. But yeah, that doesn't help.
Yeah. So the way they try to hide the whole encryption thing, because it's symmetric encryption, once you get the key, you can
Right.
decrypt everything. So the way they do it is by just giving you a blob of binary code and making it like harder to reverse engineer. The thing is, those people are, I'm not going to say they're stupid because they're not, but they don't realize it's easily broken. Like one, I think it was someone who actually worked on console hacking who did this the first time around, but like
Gotcha.
you can crack this for something called a fault injection in cryptography. So
Oh
have
yeah,
you
this
heard
crap.
have you heard about AES?
I'm sorry, repeat that again.
AES, WIND, the encryption the encryption algorithm. Yeah, okay. So the way it works is that it has a set number of rounds, and the idea is through butterfly effects. Basically, one small change is going to make huge change in the final step. So that's called confusion and diffusion in cryptography world. Basically, so the whole point in this case is that if you can inject a fault like at the last round or like before the last round like this, you can actually you can actually simulate one round, and since you did not simulate a ton of rounds, you can actually guess some bytes of your key, rinse and repeat, and you can guess the entire key. And so you don't even have to reverse engineer the whole binary. You just have to make it bug a bit, and you can find the key.
And if I may ask, is MobileCoin using a similar technique, and this is why this is a problem, or?
No, but I'm getting to it.
Yeah, no, that's
So
fine. Question. Do you want to try testing your screen, and if not, just tell me what to point to in the browser and stuff like that?
I mean, sure, but I can share my webcam, but I don't think I can. I'm going to have to be disconnected for like 10 minutes if I try to do that. So, uh,
Ever need me to bring up like, because again, I have the mobile coin on forked
yeah,
on
sure.
their GitHub. You can just tell me where to go. And
I'm going to explain that later. If you want
okay,
me to enable my webcam, though, I can do it. That's fine.
again with privacy and stuff, unless you're going to be showing things that aren't your face, that's completely up to you.
I don't really care. It's up to you.
I'm good with voice, and I can just bring up
Okay.
stuff that we could be the
Okay.
voice of French God. So
It's fine. So, like what I was getting at through all of this is that this is easily broken, and web designers know it. So what's done on say Android systems is they use a security coprocessor. So I'm going to have to talk a bit about trust zone here, but basically what is trust zone? Inside modern ARM processors, you have like these four secondary processors inside of them that can do things, but that has a higher level of privilege than the main CPU. And so basically, if it doesn't want the main CPU to do things, it's just going to shut it down or to do whatever. It has full control over the main CPU. So the way Widevine works on Android devices is that at the start of the Android device, you're going to boot your bootloader, which is OEM provided. Then it's going to boot inside Trust Zone, at least on ARM. It's going to boot something called the Trusty Kernel. And the Trusty Kernel is like this small thing developed by Google, which loads all the DRM you want. And in this case, it's going to load all the Widevine stuff. So when you watch a video on Netflix, it's going to actually use a CPU which executes code you don't own. And so this is why your main, like, there's all those people that claims you absolutely need a secure bootloader and all. And if you root your phone, it's going to be a pain, etc. And while I get the idea, just the fact of having a security coprocessor that can execute stuff, if you don't own the bootloader, is just kind of insane in a way. If your entire security model relies on your bootloader not being broken or someone not being able to patch the shit, it's already broken. Like,
and
yeah,
this is
this
man
other,
in the
another
middle heaven.
yeah, you have this other dude like from the console I can see again, Shiny Quacksire. He posted like this emoji exploit on LG Note, I think, which was a bootloader exploit. But the idea is that it was a stupid bootloader exploit, right? But it
Mhm.
could break the entire DRM of Netflix, and that's what I was getting at, because MobileCoin use a similar technique. Intel SGX, you can think of it as a trust zone. It's not working the same way, right? It's not the same thing, but you can think of it this way. The idea is that the way I'm going to actually show you a link in this case to explain better, but I'm going to try to see if I can.
Sure. I'm
Yeah,
also right
wait.
now on MobileCoin on their crypto section of MobileCoin too. So
Yeah. So I just sent you a link. In the link I sent you, basically, the way they actually work is that every transaction in MobileCoin use something from MoneyWell, actually, since you talked about MoneyWell earlier, which is called WingCT. So what is WingCT? For those that might not know, WingCT is a way to do transactions through, like, imagine you have 10 transactions you want to do. Instead of sending all the transactions separately, you're going to hide them all in the same block, and then you have some probability that your transaction is in one of them, right? So they try, it's not like, I'm trying to not be too technical because it's going to be boring otherwise, but the idea is that it's like a blender. You're going to just send a lot of transactions that happened. You're going to blend in the recipient address, the destination address, and all. And at the end of the day, you have a probabilistic idea that all of this is linked to who.
it honestly sounds like a concept that I think I've covered briefly before, which is it sounds like a centralized version of what's known in the crypto world as coin mixing.
Yeah, it's pretty much that, basically. The issue with it's actually a bit more secure, but it's known to be broken. Like, you can just do it online. You can just Google WinCT exploit or security faults or something. You're going to find 10 papers about this on Archive or I don't know. You're going to find attacks from Zcash people, I think. But it's known to be broken if badly designed. It's not fully broken, but you can trace back stuff.
I literally just found the read MD for the what they called it, the crypto box that you were talking about. It's using the Rosetto group.
The with retro group actually is something like it's going to be more on the cryptography side of things, and I don't want to explain elliptic curves here, but
No, no one wants to do that. Keep going. Sorry. Shit.
okay, no, it's fine. So basically, the way they do. So MobileCoin, tries to hide all transactions, so everything is private. Nobody knows where the money goes. And the way they do this is that they basically attest that the thing was right on their centralized consensus protocol, and then once it's attested that it's right, it's going to remove all of this WinCT. So it tries to remove, the entire attack surface. The issue here is that it's basically on a trust us regard. So trust us, we removed it, it's fine. So how do you trust those validation nodes? There's two steps to that. First, it's centralized. You pick yourself the nodes you want to trust, and it's a bit centralized. And the second issue with this is Intel SGX. So they use Intel SGX, and basically every binary is going to use Intel SGX to prove that they used the same binary.
So you're basically using like essentially one step verification here, where the centralized node that you pick verifies it, but there's no either second check or second check by the client itself that the person's using. It's just we set it good, so it's good.
In this case, yeah, it's actually decentralized, but basically you prove to other people that you use the same binary as everyone else. But there's an issue with that. The first is that this means the MobileCoin Foundation actually owns all the released binaries. So it's even more centralized than it sounds, because imagine they just made a backdoor on the binary one day. They say to everyone, well, update. And even if they didn't show it in the source code, nobody can trust it. So they have to run the binary they provided. And if this binary is backdoored, well, tough luck. And the second thing is all these, all those steps relies on Intel SGX to not be broken, because Intel SGX is the thing that's going to prove to other computers that you run the role, that you run an unmodified binary, right? The thing is, Intel SGX is broken and is known to be broken. Let me see if I can find something about it. Maybe Plundervault. Yeah, yes, Plundervault is fine. You can tell this. It's like some attack on SGX. Yeah, there's been a lot. I think it's SGX. Yeah, it's SGX. There's been a lot of attacks. There's Plunder Vault. There's been side channels attacks other than Plunder Vault. I forgot the name. What the website where they've shown the Mona Lisa getting extracted. Hold on, it might be a bit cash out. Maybe it was cash out. Yeah, it was cash out. So you can go to this website and just scroll a bit down, and you can see the Mona Lisa. It's supposed to be secret data that nobody can dump, and at the right, it's what they dump by their code.
I'm just personally amused on the
Mhm.
there's a different URL that the cache out is literally that this basically the CPU dump that the logo is literally a slot machine because it basically is at that point. That just makes me laugh. But yeah, I know. Turn my mic off.
Yeah,
I
it's
just yeah, I'm sharing those two links in chat here. So down here, yeah, I see recovering RSA keys as one demo, which I'm not going to play, so we don't go. And yeah, the dumping the SGZ enclaves using the Mona Lisa, and you can
yeah,
see how it does it line by line.
yeah, it's a bit slow, but the point is the SGX is broken and is known to be broken. So attacks like, a threat model like this, where you prove to other people that you execute the same binary is stupid. So you can just completely disregard that fact. So now the threat model, like if you just nullify SGX from the equation, is trust us, we actually removed the kind addresses and all. So in theory, a malicious server uh, could just be a validator node and could just save all the transactions going through and could essentially just try to trace back every transaction. So it provides no real guarantee that everything is private, like they say.
Just for streaming reasons, there's a short video on this here, but I'll do that at the end just as a bonus. To use, what I can imagine, just to break it down for the audiences listening, because we always tell people when we do this stuff that you can go as technical as you want as long as you just cover like the beginning basics so that people have no idea
Mm.
what this can kind of follow along overall. And just to kind of break it down, to me, this kind of sounds like it's like more centralized nodes. It sound like, to use a lock analogy, it basically sounds like people, which this happens, where they trust the locksmith that's going to make the keys to the different doors of their facility. That the locksmith got all these locks that have various security driver PIDs and decently paracentric keyways, and he told the managers that stuff. But when he gives all the keys, despite having those security features, all the keys are bitted the exact same way. So once you broke one of them, you know how to go through all of them. You know, as long as you know how security pins work, because the actual heights are basically all the same. So basically, they've convinced people that there's more security than there actually is, and they basically by doing that have cut their like security and in half and basically doubled their attack surface.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because there's like they decided to go this way in terms of speed. Because Monero is actually the fastest cryptocurrency compared to say Zcash when it comes down to actually implementing a private ledger. So to explain basically the two sides of the story, Zcash implements something which is called zero knowledge proof. So basically, it's going to prove that something actually happened, but it's not going to send the data, but people can verify. It's basically.
After this stream, if you're for the people watching, again, you can go back to the, I forget which number it is, but the second episode last year in September where we actually covered Zcash, Monero, and a bunch of security coins and talked about what their features are and stuff. Just putting that out there.
Okay. So basically, Zcash use zero knowledge proof, and this allows them to basically just send data that proves that the transaction occurred, but like not share the data. So it's a full, essentially, security model. Now the issue with Zcash is that they decided it was too much of a performance hit. So
Yep.
it's by default, and this breaks the entire thing because now secure transactions actually they come as weird compared to all the other transactions, and they actually stand out. So this breaks the security model too, which is kind of dumb. Anyways, there's this dude from the Zcash Foundation, I think. Uh, Actually, I don't know if he's at the Zcash Foundation, but basically, he talked about a bit about the MobileCoin dilemma there, and he said what needed to be changed to zero knowledge proof. In
As we said in the episode, there was a compromise with that we covered, and to also note, what was I going to say about I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it was something about this sort of stuff. Is like similar to what we said about this in the security episode itself. In kind of the same way, the traditional balance for a lot of like internet privacy stuff is security versus usability. For the crypto world, a lot of it is a balance between privacy and speed. And a lot of times, not all the time, but most of the time, when you ramp one even slightly towards one side, it's like an RPG stat. The other one suffers. And for example, as you said, that's exactly why with Zcash, um, they basically noticed the network was slower, so they tilted more in the opposite direction.
Yeah, and so to continue my argument, basically, this dude explained what we need to change basically to the Zcash ZK snark, which is the zero knowledge proof that Zcash use to make it actually fast enough to be used in MobileCoin. And it's basically, I think it was under 5 seconds. He said under 5 seconds. So that's essentially all you need for MobileCoin now. You can wait 5 seconds on a phone to see if a transaction occurred. Anyways, so that's the side of the story from the Zcash people. So they could have implemented zero knowledge proof, but instead they went the Monero route, where they did this blunder and they used Intel SGX to hide over this fact instead of doing proper R&D. So they kind of made a hack on top of another to solve the same issue, and it turns out the hack actually sucks. And it's another thing I have. Yeah. It's another thing I have with Signal because they use on their servers Intel SGX for the whole PIN story. They say, "Oh, we don't store anything. We are only going to store contacts and all." But when it comes down to it, we cannot necessarily trust your server. And the whole point of this article was like, you don't have to trust us in storing our data. But not only do we not trust your server when you receive the data, we don't trust it long term, and we specifically don't trust Intel SGX to do a good enough job. So this whole pin story, well, turns out you can also break it on the main Signal thing. Now, I'm not going to go in the pin debate
Oh, you gotta be
because
kidding me. I mean, that makes sense, but dear Lord.
Yeah, the whole pin story is still not consistent from both sides of the story, so I'm not going to get into it right now. And honestly, I just haven't looked at the implementation code, so I can say much. But
I understand that.
using Intel SGX is basically just using a nuke and hoping it won't ever come out.
And this
so,
is, yeah.
Hmm?
You can
I'm
keep
letting
going.
you. It's fine. No, it's fine.
Oh, I was just gonna make a quick quib of that. Like, again, there has been lingering issues with Signal, and you could argue if they're quote minor or not. But basically, if you want to take one thing away from this by adding MobileCoin, even if you take away all of the like business stuff and implementation stuff that's going on, it's amazing how you have two different software projects that have their own potential exploits, and then by combining together, again, they've just like greatly increased their attack surface. It's like the reverse of a jack of all trades, where it's like it has all, but it has none, but it masters suck.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing with SGX. Just I understand they want usability. I understand they want speed, but this is not the correct way to do it because as it stands, what they made is a centralized Monero that's
Right.
just a bit faster, and it's
And because
sure
yeah.
it's a faster Monero, but you can make it faster in a lot of
And again,
ways.
considering that the project, I'm not saying this is so don't send pitchforks at me, but like I'm just thinking myself, right? It's like I agree with that. And then it's like you look at the other factors too, where it's what do you call it? Where again, Signal. I don't know about MobileCoin, but definitely Signal is a United States company. Just like this other project, it's focused on speed, and all of these other things. What I keep thinking about is that sounds like Signal's version of DM, which is Facebook's own kind of centralized cryptocurrency that they want to use to rule the world. And again, what we know Facebook is the vector point of privacy evil. Why are you doing something that sounds a lot like that? It's just ugh.
Mm. Yeah, another issue I actually have with this whole thing is I forgot again. God, this isn't my day. Might be because it's 5 a.m. But
I know. Again, it's just, I apologize for this. This is
oh,
why
it's fine.
for Killamurray we had to do because he was in Italy. Yeah, he's from Italy, and we had to do. Never mind that their own weird internet laws. Uh, I will try to. I mean, I'm having a great conversation, but just normally because I have episodes are going, I'm probably am gonna wrap this up in like 5 or 10 minutes. We can keep talking. It's just that.
Oh, okay.
Did you remember the thing? Because if not, I have a question to ask you.
I have other things to talk about just before that, but
Sure.
if it's going to end in 10 minutes, I'm just
Oh no no
trying
no
to do.
no! Actually, what I could do, talk about
Hmm?
those things if you remember them. Talk about those things, and then I'll basically add that question. I'll do the fun follow-up question, and then we'll wrap things up. And again, thank you for being on here. This is like I'm not kissing your ass on the stream. This is honestly has been a delight discussing this. And I just want to remind the chat again if you have any questions for myself or our guest here about what we're talking about with Signal, mobile coin, encryption methods uh, or just cool shout outs, let me know in chat. Let me know in chat. I'll relay that. Otherwise, keep lurking, keep learning. So I'm still going to continue the floor. If you remember those, go. You have the floor.
Okay, so first things I want to show is how our entire consensus protocol works. So they use something which is called the Stellar Consensus Protocol. It's something I think it was introduced in the cryptocurrency repo, but it's not a big deal. The main thing is that it's a Byzantine consensus protocol. So what is Byzantine? It basically means that there's going to be an evil actor in the entire computers, and they all need to agree with like an evil actor. Like a stupid example, the Apollo guidance computer. It had 3 CPUs because in case one actually went completely crazy because of radiations or whatnot, you could have the two other CPUs guiding it back on the right track. And so that's fairly fail-safe. That's the way this kind of consensus protocol works. So how does the entire consensus protocol works? So they have this word quorum. If you go to the setup and the steps, so you have to actually get your server with like FQDN, so just an URL, and you're going to point it to the server you supposedly trust. So when you set up yourself your own computer, you need to trust other validation nodes to enter an entire decentralized area. It's like basically how you set up BGP for the net, just a bit more close tight, if you know what BGP is.
You know what it is, but just for our audience, if you can
Okay,
do a
yeah,
sentence or
right.
three, that'd be great.
So basically BGP, when you have multiple servers interconnected to the net, how routing works on the internet. So basically, you're going to send it to your modem, which is going to send it to the ISP servers and all, and they have a role ASN. So AS. So what is an AS? It's an autonomous system, and they need now to relay servers that are outside of a realm, and to organize outside of a realm. Inside there's other protocols, but outside they have this protocol called BGP. And BGP is a protocol which allows multiple data centers to interconnect and like if you need to go to set websites, you know where to send the data and all. And BGP actually does that. And the way it works is you're going to install some software on your server, and you're going to connect to other data centers, and you're going to say, yeah, I trust this person X% or with X number, and it's basically just a trust. World trust careful. It's really hard to explain BGP because it's actually like 20 steps that you can't remember from head, but it's basically the same thing. So we have this full consensus protocol, which is basically what allows everyone to verify that transaction is correct or not. You're going to send it to watcher node or a validator node. It's going to validate it for you. and then it's going to send you back the data and say if it's worked or not. Now, what happens if Intel SGX is broken? It could allow for double spend, because if your validation node is as a quorum you actually have, which is malicious, and if your Intel SGX is actually broken, then you can just do whatever on your consensus protocol, and suddenly you control the entire consensus. It's like a 50% attack. In a way,
51%
it's
attack. We
not.
covered that on our scams and hacks episode.
Yeah, it's not quite the same thing, but it's a bit hard to explain right now. So that's an issue they have too right now.
It's basically, if I can try to sum up, it's enough validation that it actually can pass.
Yeah, and the Intel SGX thing protects absolutely nothing in this case. So they use a consensus protocol which is centralized, which comes from Ripple, and they use this for the transactions. They actually use this Unicity thing, which comes from Monero, and which doesn't actually provide necessarily the privacy security that they want. At least in the future, it's probably going to be possible to get all this. Now, is it fast? Yes. But another thing I wanted to mention is that if you go actually to the main GitHub, like just the main README, just ctrl-f Android, you're going to get like at the bottom of the page. I'm going to quote what they said to you. I thought you were called MobileCoin. Where is the code for mobile devices? And we are hard at work for building mobile SDKs for iOS and Android, etc., etc. TLDR, we are going to make it into Signal, but we don't even have the code yet for mobile devices. Which is, it's a great thing when you call MobileCoin, like we say. So, mhm.
Four, I'm going to read it out loud for
Yep.
the people there. It says, number
Yeah, sorry
four,
for my accent.
I thought you were called MobileCoin. Where is the code for mobile devices? We are hard at work for building mobile SDKs for iOS and Android, as well as additional privacy-preserving infrastructure to support blockchain transactions for mobile devices. We'll be releasing the software soon. And I agree. Most of the people who are on Signal are on them for mobile devices, and they just have their client just like their desktop client just because. So like, what gives? Reminds me of early Linux phones or iPhones where it did everything but text and call people.
And I encourage you to also read the fifth point that's just below it, so
Oh,
you
I
can
just
see
saw
another
it.
red flag.
I'll read this one out loud as well. Um, will I need to put my keys on a remote server to scan the blockchain for incoming transactions? Keys will never leave your mobile device. This is a challenging problem, and we are very excited to share our solution. We release our mobile SDK that, adding to what's not written there, they're excited to release the solution for the SDK that they have not developed yet.
Yeah, and another thing I want to say about this whole mess is that you remember the MobileCoin Foundation website, right? If you
Yeah, let me
scroll
go
at
back.
the bottom of it, you'll see that a sponsor is Intel. I wonder why Intel sponsored this whole thing. Maybe it has to do with SGX, I know.
Oh God, and Azure and
Yeah.
IBM. This is literally like the freaking what is that called? The
And,
Cerebus of companies
oh yeah, and you know
for
why
online
Azure.
cloud systems. Yeah.
Yeah, just for your information, actually, the ledger is, I think it was maybe AWS or something, but they
Right.
have this whole thing which is called ledger distribution. You can go on it if you want. Yeah, it runs on
Right.
AWS, but basically they just export the entire blockchain on an AWS server. So that's cool. Yeah, it says free.
I had a headache from you telling me that. Could you? Where am I looking at again?
Ledger distribution in selected binaries.
Okay.
It's like scroll at the top of the README, then go up to the repository structure with all the
And there's a
the
folder called
tables.
Ledger.
Ledger distribution in selected binaries. The second item.
Okay. I'm an idiot. Can you send me the link for that if you
Yeah,
have it? Sorry, I'm
yeah, sorry.
just. That's just one of the reasons why we're gonna add the episode soon. It's not you. You've been fantastic. I've just been literally like pants on head stupid right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to explain all I want, but
Yeah,
like,
this uses funny enough with Twitch, because one of my favorite things about Twitch is because they're owned by Amazon, they actually have a Twitch stream for Amazon Web Services. And yep, as you can see right here, and I'll share the same link that our guest just posted. You have oh, is that the just double checking here? You have to have AWS credentials, and it's funny you mentioned that because um, I literally made Firefox a like red teaming, like a browser that if you were in CTF would assist you with red teaming. It like plugs into other software programs and allows you to do certain things in browser you normally do in terminal, and it eats through a lot of particularly web challenges. And one of the
mhm.
tools that I have there is something that can it's an extension that can generate and validate independently AWS credentials. So this is just sad and hilarious.
Yeah, I'm going to try to rush a bit through what I wanted to say. I don't even remember half of what I wanted to say now.
I'm
But anyways,
sorry, I tend to do that. I
no, it's fine.
apologize.
It's fine. But basically, so there's also this whole thing with the can I find something? Yeah, for example, in the repository structure table you can see on the README, there's something called MacBuild, tools for building something, etc. If you click on it, you get a 404 error. And there's a lot of things like this in the documentation. It's outdated in a lot of places, other places like the concept, I think it's the AKE in the consensus protocol that doesn't have documentation at all. Let me see if I can find that. Or was it in transaction? Hold on. I'm trying to find it there.
I'm going nuts because I literally was just on container and I can't remember where the hell I put it.
Yeah, but basically, they sometimes they don't have any with me at all. And if you actually look through the search code they have, so it has a lot of comments. That's a good thing. It's well commented. The bad thing I have and the bad feeling I have from this is over engineering as a whole. So I can't really show it right now, and it's anyways going to end soon this episode. But the issue is that basically the entire thing is a lot of libraries and libraries and libraries, and you don't know what libraries, and you don't know the documentation for one, and it ends up being a headache to actually try to understand everything because it relies on free custom libraries. Like the whole SGX thing is a fork of something that Baidu developed. I think it was Baidu or something like that. Anyways,
Oh dear lord.
they made their own SGX library,
Yeah,
which is
Baidu. Dear lord, why would you ever even use that?
hold on, there's which is fork from Baidu. I might be saying something stupid there. I don't remember the name, but I think it's something like this. Anyways, SGX is used and it's a ton of folders. If you see, actually, it's like 10, 20 folders, anyways, and it's used in enclave boundary, which is is used in consensus, which is half used. Anyways, you can see the point. It's a mess to actually navigate through. The code is really well commented, though, and it's actually good looking in West code. The issue really has to do with code organization, and all of it is just made like it looks like they made a maze so that it's harder for people to actually understand what's happening. But in a weird way, like, they can deniably say that they actually commented this thing well, and they did for their content, but it's still a pain to navigate through. And I have another thing for documentation about all of this. They have no white paper, so every
Right.
cryptocurrency implements something as a white paper, and I can understand it somehow because MobileCoin didn't introduce any new concepts, like no one at all. It's only just WinCity from Monero. It's the Stellar Consensus Protocol from the IEEE, I think. I don't remember, but it's taken from Ripple, and it just builds from all this cryptocurrency. There's zero new thing mathematically wise, but
Mhm.
they have no white paper to explain why they put it this way or why they built it this way. It's just in there with me, basically.
Yeah, that like literally again when I looked up PDFs, they only have one that explains the overall operations and how MobileCoin works, but I didn't find anything particularly on the encryption. And to go back to your point about it being a maze, tinfoil hat, what I'm more thinking about why they organize in such a confusing way is potentially so that it's really hard for people to you just it's like, oh, it's open source, it's on GitHub, but they made it so confusing so that it's really hard to go in for people even who know what they're doing and properly independently audit it. It'd be really easy to slip things in or have people get frustrated and ignore things and not realize other things that are going on or that they're lacking. And to me, that's another reason why it's maybe that they did that. If they did that on purpose, that could be a reason why.
Yeah, that might be just like a stupid conspiracy theory of mine. It probably is actually, but it just looks way over-engineered for what it is.
Right.
It's well commented, it's well explained, but it's so compartmentalized. You have no global understanding of how everything relies together, and that's if you can't get a feel for how everything works, even the binaries, like they have those three binaries, they have validator and full validator, but you don't even know what is a full validator until you actually go to the README and you see that the full validator just pushes the ledger on AWS. Then you have MobileCoin T, which says synchronizes the ledger. What does it do? Why is it this way? Do you even need to synchronize
Explain
something when you use it?
yourself.
Yeah, it's something like this. And like these, the SGX libraries are like 4 or 5 level deeps of intricacies, and I've looked myself at the code. Actually, I think, let me see if I can find it, but I've seen some funny challenges that they use in the testing system.
Okay.
I'm trying to see
I
if
know
I
their
can.
testnet is live, allegedly.
Yeah, it's not about the testnet. It's stuff that they did to like testing in the West Code. I'm trying to find. Hold on. I know I posted about it to Zero Kill the other day. Let me see if I can find it.
As I said, because I realized my mic was off, you're good. Take your time with that. While you do that, I guess I'll do the last spiel. So we're going to end this episode soon, so me and this poor man can also sleep. If you like all this
I
stuff,
found it.
okay,
Yeah, I
awesome.
found it. It's let me get the link. It's in the attestation library in the AKE. You have fun things like that.
Here we go, big old blob.
This whole thing is stupid, by the way. It's just like it's not actual code you're going to run on your side. It's just a way to test the entire code. But I still find it funny that they pick those quotes,
Well, we've had a history
especially
of
the one I linked, because I find it quite ironic, honestly.
Yeah, and again, one of the new things is people are slowly waking up to like how things are structured. There's been a history of people hiding and manipulating things, even if it's just someone making an error in the actual binary blobs themselves. um,
Yeah.
so, if you don't mind, unless there's any other things to talk about, I'm gonna end with 3 questions. Basically, one that I think will nicely cap off this kind of a fun question, and then a wrap up question.
Yeah, sure, it's fine. I tried to explain all I could without going too technical or too
No,
long. Maybe I could run for hours for this and
that's
go
that's
to
fantastic. And I will say this, if you on any topic
Mhm.
want to go super technical into something that you're just really passionate about and you just want to display out there, you can always shoot us an email at info@defcon201 and just to save yourself from 5 a.m. We would love to get a pre-recorded thing, even if it's 10 minutes on something that you're really passionate about that you want to just go super into like assembly code type stuff into. We're down for that.
But
100%.
it's fine, don't worry, it's the weekend for me, first of all. And second of all, like I basically pick when I work. So
Right.
uh, I just change my waking hours and all on a day by day basis when I need to be awake. That's all.
Oh, same. We're like this in the United States where we have no concept of time. I always keep joking last year was the longest decade we've ever had. Um but okay, so the 3 last questions because I think the chat is again, chat, if you
Mhm.
want to do any last minute questions, here it is now. So here's the ones I'm going to list. So I guess a nice way to cap this off, and this could be an entire episode of itself.
Mhm.
If for some reason you were given the project lead crown on trying to integrate something like what Signal's trying to do at MobileCoin, what would be just overall, even if you're like, there's nothing I would do because it sucks, what would you do um,
Well,
to attempt to do this?
first of all, I wouldn't get involved in cryptocurrency because
No,
Yeah,
perfectly valid.
and,
No, perfectly valid on here.
and
Perfect
what I
valid
would
answer.
do, well, what I would have done on my side is, okay, right, they sold 50% of their coins, something like that, for 30 million. They have 30 million pound funding. So I'm not an expert in finances and business. Well, I own one, but that's another story. But the point is, if you have 30 million, you can just wait 1 or 2 years and actually get something proper to release to the world and do some actual research instead of trying to piece out together something in a hurry, because you could have like researched for Zcash a bit more, because if the Zcash Foundation actually had some ideas about it, you could have reached out and just asked if they had ideas, or if you could hire contractors on this side or something like that. If you have this much funding, you can just bother to do research and actually try to come up with better solutions. I'm not saying they didn't. I'm saying the project is obviously rushed when you see the fourth point about Android, iOS, and all, and that the code is not there. This is rushed, and there's no way you can say this isn't. It was rushed, and the announcement was rushed.
Yeah,
That's a fact.
I completely agree. They're literally putting the cart before the road, before any of the horses. And the other thing about that is that I'm also thinking that all of that money and investment could have probably gone into a combination of PR and some of the engineering to sort of patch up some of the coding and transparency mistakes that they've done over the years. That they could keep like enforcing, just keep hardening and stuff. That to me that would be a better use, even as someone who sees a lot of promise in cryptocurrency blockchain technologies and have shown proper ones off. It's you have to crawl before you know how to walk and walk before you know how to run. I would have loved to seen Signal actually harden themselves more and come up with better, clever, elegant solutions. And then once that's more stable, then start thinking about this as an actual long-term thing. That's just me.
Yeah, I think the reason they did it this way is essentially adoption, because that's a thing that Signal really wants to do. They want to become mainstream, and they probably rushed it because of the whole WhatsApp deal. That's what I think.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
hmm? Yeah, okay. Well, but the issue with that is that they have not only a bad timing with the whole US laws thingy on cryptography and the cryptography wars
Yep.
basically restarting, but they're actually harming the community. And it's not even legal in the US currently. They say people
Yep.
in the US don't use that. So, no, that you're actually harming your entire user base by doing this right now. I don't mind if you do it later and it's an optional feature, sure, but right now it's actually hurting more than it helps. And that's the whole point I want to put
Yeah.
out there.
Because
It's not a bad idea, it's just badly implemented.
yes, it's very similar, even though to me this is both a bad idea and badly implemented. Facebook tried to rush their Libra project, which is why they end up rebranding and turning it into DM and put the
Yeah,
cart
but
before the horse, where they put all this stuff out there without even like looking at the laws of different countries if this would even be viable. And I agree with that.
it's not, but like for Facebook, there wasn't even a moment when you could imagine that it was actually good, because,
Exactly.
having a private corporation and all the money of the world,
Oh
how
yes.
could that go wrong? I don't know.
That does not look like Trump and the two people in Saudi Arabia holding the glowing globe like it's Cobra Commando at all. That does not look like that. Totally. I'm being sarcastic just in case the audience doesn't get it. And Yeah, my other thing about that, speaking of bad timing, so semi joke, conspiracy theory, I also wonder if maybe as a happy accident, they may have been more justified with the timing because basically Dogecoin kicked off and Elon Musk did it, and they saw how that rapidly developed. So they're kind of like semi hoping for maybe the same thing, and it just backfired in on themselves because again, it just
Yeah.
harms their transparency.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Uh,
Because like it could have happened at all time with Elon Musk, but because what Elon Musk did is he just got this kid named AEX something, and he wanted a pump and dump really quick to get money, so he did that. That's all.
Yep, my actual like conspiracy theory on all of this, right,
Mhm.
is that I think he's gonna tie his space satellite stuff to stuff he's trying to do with cryptocurrency. That's what I think he's going to
I don't
attempt to do. That's
I
just
don't
me
think
though.
I don't think he's going to attempt that. At least I really hope he isn't.
I hope
Because
not
holy
either. Are you kidding me? We have to develop like hacker satellite technology to knock those stuff out of the sky. That'd be hilarious. Um,
but I mean, did you wasn't the dude kicked from SpaceX, or was it Tesla? Because he just went on about Israel assets and all on Twitter and just got kicked out from the product. I remember. I think it
All
was
I
Tesla.
know is that I don't trust any business venture where your job is to shoot rockets in the air, and we've been doing that. Multiple orgs have been doing that for like 80 years now, and all of your rockets blow up. That's just me personally. Um, so I guess the other thing, and this is kind of like my fun question. Okay, this is you're probably gonna groan
Mhm.
because it's so myopic. So I have a lot of friends, and you can highlight others that I don't know about. It seems like every time I run into a technologist or a hacker or a security person or whatever who lives in France, they're
Mhm.
all involved in the and I'm gonna butcher this, okay, because I'm really tired. Nuit du hack, and
Uh,
I was
Nudiac, yeah.
yeah, I was wondering if you ever went there, and if not, just what's the kind of the French hacker scene like right now, besides the obvious plague going around.
So yes, I've been there, but it's not something I really care about. Like,
That's
I
fine.
think it's I would say that in France there's two things dedicated to computer security. There's the STIC, SSTIC, which is a symposium, like really academical thing where all basically all secret agencies and all just expose their work. It's imagine just Black Hat but for government officials, and then you have the Nuit du Hack where it's the same thing but undercover. So because like you had this dude in 2019, I think.
If
Or
I
sorry, it was.
remember, it was undercover for many years at Disney World Paris for whatever reason.
Yeah, it isn't at Disneyland now. I think it was like last time I went there. Never mind. But like there was this dude, I think it was in 2019 or something, but from the CIA who actually talked about brain hacking and stuff and was on a completely weird trip. Like he was talking about, this LSD thing that the USA did. I forgot the name, where they injected LSD into people and wanted to see. I forgot the name. Oh, fuck off. It's, how is it
There's
called? Like,
while you look for that, well, for America, GeoJack wrote MK Ultra, if that's what you were thinking of.
MK Ultra. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. He was talking about MK Ultra, and he was talking about like, oh, government agencies wanted to hack your brain to take control of yourself and all. And he was like, it's way over his head. He didn't even knew what he was talking about. But he was, he looked, he honestly looked fun.
I know what you're talking about some degree because this sounds like a combination. I'm going to hear our co-founder groan in the other room between.
Mhm,
We have a conference that happens on both coastlines when there's not a play going around called HushCon, which is like an
mhm.
invite only. Like it's publicly known. It's an invite only, and like it's like they limit it to like 100, maybe 200 people that attend, and they have talks like that where it's like people who are currently employed by the government go up and they're like, okay, here's the thing I've always wanted to say at HackerCons, but normally they won't let me, but because this is not being recorded, fuck it. And
Okay, I found you. I found it. I found it difficult. I'm going to like copy paste. Yeah.
and the other thing that this reminds of is so a couple years back, I'm trying to remember which exactly. Oh boy, I'm trying to remember which exactly, and I'll share this in chat. Um, I can't remember which year it was. I think it might have been DEF CON 27 or something. They set up a cannabis village, and I was excited because I've been wanting this for a while, and like my take on it was going to be, and they had like bits of this of like I wanted people who have legally grown cannabis around the world in the United States, and let's talk about like how they do gene sequencing. How do they put that out there? Like what do they do with the criminal system? How do you even try to advertise themselves on the internet when it's individual states and it's not the United States Federation approving it? And there was a talk there that our co-founder was literally, I would say it's the worst talk I have ever seen at DEF CON, which says a lot. And our co-founder, you can actually see in the video where he walks out of the room, where they had these like crazy dudes on, and it basically it read, he could explain it better than me, but it read their talk seemed like a troll talk, but it's like America. It seemed like a troll talk, but it wasn't a troll talk. They were actually dead serious about the topic they were doing. Like this was not a giant prank, and like they were talking about like like different astrological signs and like things that make MK Ultra,
Oh no.
look like 2 + 2 = 4 and things like that. And literally, you can see our co-founder walk right out. As soon as the astrology came out, you can literally see him walk out of the room. And I told him I'm glad I wasn't there because I would have walked out, and then there would have been a toilet with gasoline on fire on like a dolly wheel that would have went right towards the stage or something if I was there. But yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
our
if
co-founder says done by some hippies from California. Yeah.
you're interested, I actually sent you, like, the last link I sent you is the link to the talk planning from the
Right.
MUDUAC. Just a thing, it's named Le Hack now because the an old organization basically had issues with right of the old name. Anyways, it's just politics, but it's now named Le Hack. So if you wonder why what this is, it's the same thing as MUDUAC. And yeah, just at the CCC, there's not. I don't think there was talks this crazy because we don't actually have like people get vetted usually for the talk there, but I think there was this you could
To be
reach on
fair, the
XM.
cannabis village is a village, so it wasn't like vetted by court. Like the talks in that village
Ah,
wasn't vetted by
yeah, yeah,
Tor
yeah.
DEF CON. That's why that probably happened.
Yeah, right. Yeah, at the CCC, I think what we have, but like I'm not involved in this, so I have no clue. But we had this dude called El Apotheker in German, who you could reach out to XMPP and he sold drugs. And I think like one of the advertisements he put was like amphetamine and saying you won't have to sleep during the CCC with it.
Oh God. Uh, I'm just imagining that combined with the pneumonic tube system, how that could go not horribly right. It's kind of funny because I'll wrap this up so we could go to bed. But
Mm.
I was going to share a story that was similar. What was really funny? Oh, about CCC. So, did you watch the RC3 this year?
Not really, unfortunately. Like I had my ticket and all, but in the end, I wasn't really
That's
available this
fine.
year.
That's why could feel your pain because I live streamed me reacting to it for all 4 days, and there was two things I've learned from that. One was it was like when they because of the time zones in Germany, since they based it on German time zones and all this
Mhm.
stuff was done live. So like when they're just like up in the morning, it was like 4 a.m. over here. And then what would be funny is by the end of the stream, they're like partying with glow sticks and stuff, but we can't like raid or like be enthusiastic because it's like 5 p.m. where we are. Like the sun is still out and birds are chirping, but over there it's like 10 p.m. at night, so they have all the DJs and stuff, and that was funny. That's why I'm like every time I always have someone from the United that's outside the United States. It's like trust me, I exactly feel your pain with that because we tried to do that live and it nearly killed me. But the other quick thing that
Yeah,
was
it's
so
just
yeah,
it's just a
there's
thing with the RC3. I've been at all CCC since the 34th or 33, I don't remember. But
sweet.
the remote didn't have the same. I know it wasn't the same to me. Like,
No, I get that
the,
sentiment.
mm.
I felt
And
that
just a
kind.
thing before you wrap up. Sorry about that. But if you want just to read the last link I sent about the LOAC, so you can just see how crazy that shit is. And I'm going to stop bringing up
Sure,
subjects.
sure. And the reason why I brought up RC3
Mm?
is because I'm going to quickly tell you this story because I think this might make you laugh. Um,
Yeah, sure.
So the funniest thing, and you can actually see it on the stream. I think this was I think the last day, and that's already a promising picture. I'm gonna share this in chat and then read it, but this is a real quick story. Was so Siriusel actually helped me out with this, which is they had their whole like 2D virtual world thing, right? And what was
Mm?
making us laugh with horror is that we load into this world and then we realize, and I think they finally added this option 2 hours before they closed the entire con. At the time that we entered, there was no option to go into your settings and like turn off the audio or video participation of the virtual world. So
Oh
I'm
no.
moving my avatar around, like because basically you cross anyone's circle, their cam and microphone turn on immediately. But their, which we agreed with, their code of conduct is that do not stream or put anyone's picture or video of someone who doesn't consent, which is fine. So the idea was we thought, oh, we go into, but there wasn't. So Sirius had to actually go in and directly edit the CSS code to permanently disable that on there. And we're just talking, laughing, and I actually enjoyed a lot of the RC3, but we were just
Hmm?
laughing of like when people think of the CCC, they a lot of the big things is like their privacy and their whole activism around privacy. So why did they make like an automatic audio and video cam system? We're so confused, especially as Americans, because we expect this
But,
from Americans,
but what you don't understand is that it was part of the conference. It was a challenge of the CTF, actually.
Yeah, and for what I heard, similar to the Open AMD project at Hope, because I'm usually really involved in Hackers on Planet Earth. I usually do the radio
Hmm?
there. I've actually always been doing the radio there since it basically started. But like with the Open AMD project, from what I understand, by the time they were actually done with the 2D world, it was like there was like 10 hours left of the con. So like it was not ready at all in the beginning. They just pushed it out there and like we're still working. It's like they're building the building while people are moving furniture in and stuff. So that was really fun. So
Yeah,
you
but
wanted me
things,
to read the last sentence you said of the description
the,
or the
the last
bio?
link, the last link, you can just read like a part of it and see how
Okay.
crazy that is. Just the first paragraph is
Okay,
enough.
that's
Like,
that's fine. I'll do this to amuse you, and then we'll do the wrap up. So the talk is, and I love how on our end it doesn't load the full picture, so you just see a chin and then like general stuff. So that's already like I expect like one of those like Monty Python God or like the Canadian heads from South Park. All right, so English. You own your computer. I own you. Lessons from the CIA. This is already bad. Remote access to a brain is the ultimate in biohacking, and it gates all others. Governments have attempted to. Actually, give me 1 second. I'm gonna be right back. I need to do something. I think this would be the great way to end the stream. Okay, just hang on for
yes.
1 second. You can chill yourself. This will be fun. Okay, hold on. As I read this, I'm going to get appropriately dressed for this, so I don't know if you've seen the live stream, but you can watch the recorded video later. This will be hilarious. All
I'll
right,
do the
so
recording.
where did I leave off? Governments have attempted to control the brain for many, many years, and in this presentation, I covered the remote brain hacking technique, which the US CIA has deemed successful and reliable, as well as others used today for medicinal purposes. A computer is just another tool when I own your brain. I have a feeling that runs GNU Herd, but whatever. Or GUIX, sorry, geeks. People may not be aware of the U.S. government's MK Ultra mind control experiment program, but even fewer know the details and specific goals which were designed to control the citizenry that is you and me. Why do you even have to define citizenry? This is not a conspiracy chasing. This is it's like QAnon. Anytime someone says this is not a conspiracy, it's a conspiracy. This presentation
Yeah.
addresses the technology which was deemed successful by research conducted by the CIA and can be deployed on a much larger scale to affect the groups, population, soldiers, and even network administration today. We will address blah
He
blah
wants to
blah blah
put every
blah.
soldier on net.
And then I'm going to read his bio. Full name Gregory Carpenter. There's his. Actually, this will be funny. I'll actually post his. I don't even know if it works. I will post that in chat. That'll be the last thing I'll share. Gregory Carpenter, International Advisory Board, Mackenzie Institute, EC Consulate. So he just lists a bunch of stuff. We're 35 years in U.S. government, including NSA, U.S. Army Cyber Command, in counterintelligence, okay, and medical. So I love how we started off with a legit concern about Signal using a skeevy cryptocurrency along with just like, both ethical and coding problems. And we've ended basically talking about the Illuminati, that Q from the Flying Spaghetti Monster has bestowed us with his noodly appendage. And
And I wouldn't have it any
I
other
don't,
way.
and I'm wearing this amazing tinfoil hat right now, literally, and all I can say is this is what I expect from France. Thank you, France.
It's not even friends. It's a
No.
US
I'm not
guy.
saying this is friends, but like that you bringing this up, I'm like, thank you. You know, this is actually no, this is very DC 201. But in extension to that, I will say we're gonna wrap up the episode here, and normally we do for all in D Live. If you're actually awake right now, we're gonna send. They have this whole system. It's not cryptocurrency, but it's a reward thing called lemons. We're gonna distribute them. I can't speak because of the tinfoil hat. Sending off the 5G signals from Hillary Clinton or whatever. Um, that was a joke, by the way, because it's 2000. See, here's the problem with America in particular is that any sarcasm's dead. So if I make a joke like that, like half the nation will actually think it will believe it as fact. It's dumb, but that's why the Onion's not a news is now a news site. But what was I getting to with this? But yeah, we're gonna distribute some lemons on D Live. I'm actually gonna flip over to the face cam now. We can still hear you and stuff. I'm just flipping this over so
Mm,
people can see the
right.
awesome hat and everything. But yeah, and this allows us. We're gonna go over to D Live and we're gonna distribute lemons. And then for all of you on Twitch, we're gonna see if there's a poor sap of a channel that we can raid, and you can find something new or see. There's probably a cool programming project that's happening right now, things like that we're going to wrap up. So all I will so what I'm going to end with is dead serious, thank you so much. This has been I'm going to be honest, this has been my third doing not that I interviewed you per se, but this has been my third doing an interview sort of thing where I'm with another person over a live stream on this. And dead serious, while Kilamaru, who's an amazing lockpicking designer from Italy is ranks up there, and the GNU Taler people were interesting. You are definitely right behind Killer Maru, and so you're basically you're my 1.5 on a list of top 5 interviews. Like this was just really awesome and insightful. So thank you so much for
Oh,
being on here, and I'm going to actually distribute the words right now. So if you're on D Live, you can get some awesome lemons, and I'm going to end it with someone? Do you want to do you want to shout out someone? Do you want to highlight something you're working on, and or do you like where can people can find you and stuff?
you just cut off. Sorry. Can you repeat?
Sorry. Um, so if you can still hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, it's like the Verizon commercial. You can hear me now? Good. Um, is there anything you want to shout out, whether it's a project or a cool thing, and where can people can find you?
Well, I'm a PCSX2 developer, so if you like the PlayStation 2, if you like emulators, I'm one of the core developers. You can check out the project, but I think most of the people interested in it know about it already, and they can just find me on Twitter. I'm Govenify, through mail. You can find my mail on my website. It's govenify.com, and yeah, that's about
I just shared your Twitter and your website. And I will say
it. Mhm. Yeah, we talked about that.
cool. Thanks. Gee, if people watch that. We still need to upload the proper video that has the slides in the corner and everything because I know it's on N Commander's channel. Um, we try to do the best job we can, but it was really popular and people really liked it. And we PAX East apparently might happen either in person or hybrid in June. We're still waiting to hear words from it, but if we do a sequel panel, I know you're all the way out in France, but we've been talking about reaching out to different people in the homebrew and hacking community and submitting either like cool work that we can show off or like a video snippet of them doing something or telling a piece of trivia. So if that happens, it will probably be one of the after the stream and stuff. But like we'll definitely think of you and contact you first if we ever hear that hey they're actually bringing us crazy assholes back to PAX East. So um, yeah. So thank you again very much for this topic. I hope everyone at home learned something, learned some things. If you want to exit chat and pass out, you can right now. So I just wanted to just get out there. Thank you for,
I'm not feeling sleepy, you know.
yes, thank you for navigating this with me. That's going to be fun. Now that we've done the D Live lemons, we're actually going to set up the raid now, which should be fun. Let's see who is on the proprietary endless ads Twitch TV. drive us. I see. I love that. Well, we use Restream, and sadly, it's like like we like it, but it's like the best method. And why did it? No, stop. Um, See, this is what I mean. Is that what makes me what makes me laugh is that like Restream it like barely breaks. It's always one of the other streams decides to do something, usually a dick move, and then it like kills all like half their channels. From what I read, that's literally what killed. They actually had a working ad blocker for Twitch, and then the people who actually wrote it removed it because since Twitch changed something, not only did just the Twitch default website break on its own, but the extension itself would like basically warp and crash Firefox, all because literally Twitch changed one line of code to be a dick to the point where they even damaged their own platform. So that's just but again, it's like us on Twitter. Everyone's on here, so we have to have a presence on here, but that doesn't mean we have to talk about how much we like it, and or that doesn't mean we can't also use alternative things as well, like us being streamed on Diode Zone, which for all the people watching at home, you can we're uploading more to the Internet Archive this week, but you can find us most of these forever, as long as they don't ban us, at YouTube, if super public popular one, or on our on the PeerTube instance known as Diode Zone. PeerTube, if I remember correctly, is at least either supported and or really popular in France, because it seems like most of the PeerTube.
I mean, it was developed in France.
Yes,
so.
it was developed there, so it's like it feels like at least 1/3 to a half of all the instances are in France. So vive les France. Let's see. Let's find a fun thing to raid here. This will take a couple of seconds. Oh, cool. I'm gonna have to choose between. You know what? They need the views. They're normally really popular, but they're streaming at an odd hour. We're gonna go raid these folks. So as I load up the dashboard here, again, I want to thank. I'm a dirty American. Can you pronounce your name again?
Okay, so do you want the full name or?
No, just your handle, like however, because I'm gonna screw it up
Oh,
because it's about to
Gominify.
be midnight here and I'm dying as well.
So my nickname is Gominify and my real name is Gauvin Tanguy Henri Gabriel Isidore Seltabourièche.
Perfect. That's trust.
I have a long name.
No, I understand. I'm half Polish. I again, I know your pain. So especially with all the variants of Tchaikovsky and how the name originally had like 3 C's in it. And anyhow, so if you're on Twitch, we're gonna go raid another channel in a moment. And we're gonna do some attributes. I want to thank our guest again for explaining all this with me. It's really awesome and insightful. And to end the spiel, while I wear this crazy hat, I'm gonna have to make this a real hat. If you liked what you saw on Crypto Barons today, you can hit that bell on YouTube and hit like, share, subscribe on Twitch, D Live, and YouTube. We're also on a bunch of other things again. I post that. I'm actually going to post the links again if you want to know more about us. Oh, I forgot to post how you interact on Facebook on here. That's weird. But there's our website, which is defcon201.org currently. We're going to have new logos and stuff soon, so that will be fun. And if you want to find us on all the social medias, whether they're Libre or corporate, we're basically on everything. I just posted the link tree that has all the listings of all of that on there. If you are a fan of Crypto Barons, again, we do this second and fourth Saturday of every month. So the next one will be on the 24th. A hint that comes after a very special day that I'm not going to dox anyone on about, but it's going to be a really cool day the day before that. But so it's after that day. That will be probably at 8 p.m. unless everything goes horribly wrong. It'll be live. And I'm working on something, and I'm talking to them right now, so I can't outright say what that episode's going to be. But considering what month it is that we're going to pass a certain date, you can probably guess what it's going to be related to. And then at some point in the near future, we'll actually do the Masternode thing, and I'm going to do like the Masternode thing, and then Elon Musk dies, and I'm going to have to cover his funeral, or it's just going to be awful. Or like Bitcoin halves again. Anyhow, so yeah, that's it for our show on Crypto Barons, where we talk about blockchain technologies. Again, our next one will be on the 24th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you follow, like, share, subscribe on Twitch Live and YouTube, you will get alerts for some of our other shows, such as Archvile Linux Perspective. We have a new show that it's gonna be official, called Circuit Breakers, where we actually do hardware hacking and modification live. And our next meeting is going to be on April 16th, probably around 6 or 7 p.m. But we're going to be announcing those details in a couple days. So once again, I want to thank my guest here, and we're going to go raid that stream. That's it. How we do the outro. Yeah. Hack the planet. Dirty Jersey represent. And remember. Trying to find a life lesson here. Where of morality, turn, tell us the lessons that we should learn. How did we uncover some odd, weird code issues and conspiracies? Because France. Peace, everybody. Enjoy the outro music. Thank you for our guests. Say goodbye to everybody. Or not. Let's just do the outro music. I'm going to wave bye like an idiot. Bye.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Sure. And yeah, I've known Teal for like years by now. If nice. Oh, I'm not sleepy at all, actually.